So the idea of Starship Rising came originally from, I heard a story from my sales agent who was talking about a submarine situation where somebody with a nuclear submarine could actually hold the entire United States at bay if he took over the submarine and would sit offshore and basically say, I'll send the missiles out of the submarine and blow up, the Capitol building or something like that, and nuke a few cities from the coastline on the East Coast. And I thought, that's a pretty serious threat. And so the idea kind of developed from there about if there was an oppressive federation and looking upon how they would be looking at trying to overthrow this terrible government, and Worthy, the main character in the film, overthrows the Starship and basically tries to hold the entire Federation at ransom. And so that's kind of the antithesis to the original idea for it. And then as we started developing the film, we looked at different ideas of, where does it go from there? Who's running the government and why is the government corrupt and everything. It's a little bit political, I guess. And I guess that's an intentional thing, but at the core of the story, it's really more about, one of my favorite films is Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. And it's got a lot of, a lot of the heart and soul of that movie in Starship. Another thing where I guess was probably a very, very heavy influence was Blake Seven, which is a British science fiction television series from the 70s. And they didn't have a very big budget. It wasn't even like Doctor Who had a giant budget. Blake Seven had a tiny budget. And, in BBC terms, it's really tiny. And the saving grace of Blake Seven was the characters and how the characters interacted and how they, I guess, worked together, in a situation, worked against they all had faults, all had problems, but they worked together against the Federation. So it's kind of my take on Blake Seven a little bit, because I like Blake Seven a lot and I keep watching it, and I guess I want to live in that universe. Obviously, it's completely different in reality of how it plays out, but it came from that moment. It came from that point of inspiration, I guess. And what I was doing with Starship One, I think, was more so setting up the characters, setting up the events, and setting up a situation that makes an interesting turning point in the history of the future Federation. And Starship One is kind of the setup. And then Starship 2 is more so when the characters really come to life, where they really start to grow and develop. And you'll see that. Obviously, Starship 2 is much more funny and friendly, and there's much more conflict between the characters. And much more stuff goes on, I think, in a personal way. It's less high concept, more of a journey. And if I ever do a Starship 3 or 4, it'll continue the story and the narrative, and probably we'll see people develop and grow beyond their years and beyond their situations. So it's kind of an epic story. Another thing that I really love is Dune, and Dune for me was this big sprawling saga, and I probably wasn't touching upon Dune very much in this film, but just the fact that it was a big story and it would go somewhere and things would change and develop, and people would become something special. That's kind of where it went for me. I come back to when I was a child, and world building for me was just, being a child and having these adventures. And the more adventures you have, the more you explore the world, the more things you learn about the world. And it kind of grows through a sort of an interesting reactive process. I try not to rip off anybody too much. You can't help it. If you're doing science fiction, you end up going down the certain path of Star Trek or Star Wars. You can't avoid it, or Serenity. You're going to hit a brick wall at some point. So I tried to do something a little different and authentic and original. But no matter what you do, you're going to hit you're going to hit somebody's stuff. There's too much science fiction out there. You can't do anything completely original without hitting something. And it's just how it is. It's a matter of then taking that world and trying to make it your own and letting it grow and develop in a natural way. And that's what I'm more interested in doing, seeing this world develop. And by the time you see Starship 2 and get to the end of that, the world is definitely nothing like Star Trek or Star Wars. It's completely different. And it's not like Serenity. It's its own thing. It's this very post-apocalyptic, I guess, feeling, and it's in a much more unusual place. So I'm excited where it's going to take us. And I just like the fact that it's a journey, that it's going somewhere. I don't like episodic things. I like stories that just progress, flow, and change. And that's always been my inspiration. This is not television. It's people want a story. People want to be entertained, and people want to go somewhere. Well, in Starship 1, definitely my favorite moment is when Worthy and General Gustav are yelling at each other across the Gulf of Space and just firing at each other, and it's back and forth, back and forth. It's that level of energy and anger and emotion and passion that's just going on. I'm loving the fact that the characters grow and develop, and of course, Starries, Brooke Lewis, she grows up through her role and tries to become a captain of a starship, and everyone has a journey. I think in Starship 2, my favorite moment was really unexpected. Was when EJ was trying to be a little bit suave with Christina Moses, and he was showing her the weapons array, and obviously that scene is pretty funny when she kind of throws him across the room and stuff. And that was a nice thing with working with these actors in Starship, is there's so many good actors, and they brought so much of their own personality into the character. And again, a good example is EJ. I didn't know he had these amazing fighting skills, because he was on Jingle All the Way and Boy Meets World and a couple of other big TV shows and movies and stuff, like the high level things, and he had some amazing fighting skills in this production. So I like the fact that EJ was able to bring a little bit of his own skill set into his character, and it made the character very interesting and very unique and very unusual. He wasn't just the stereotypical guy, nerd guy flying the ship, or pilot, or, navigating the ship. He was something special, and he grew up into the role nicely. It's just interesting. Same with Ralph Guzzo. He brought his own class and style, his Italian flavor to the production, and Raja Barudi, who I guess has that she actually is royalty. She's a royal person from, I think, the Q8 royalty or something like that. So she was pretty much able to draw upon a real life of living in a royal palace, and how people of high noble birth would act. And so she was a shoo-in to be that character. Who else do we think? Obviously, Darren Jacobs, who played Worthy. Now he was very linear in Starship 1. In Starship 2, I would wish I could have called it Worthy Gets Angry, because it's all about him. And I've gone through Starship 2, and I feel really bad for Darren because of what I put him through. But if you ever want to see his range, look at him in my movie Death Machine, and you'll see a completely different person, different character completely. And that's a proof of what a great actor he is. It's looking at the contrast of what an actor can do, and that makes me extremely happy. There's Emmy. Now, I originally was supposed to be doing a music video for her, and we just met up, and I thought, she looks really cool. And we were kind of like, I won't say brother and sister, but we were kind of, pretty much like brother and sister, I guess, when we met, because it was like we were very similar. We liked the same things, and we just hit it off straight away. Her and Joshua Paul Miller, who played the Rortak character. We all hit it off as a team, and I thought, nice people. And then I just threw them in front of the camera for a screen test, and it turns out they could all act. I was like, you guys done acting before, haven't you? They said, yes, we have. And I said, great. Well, do you want to be in a film called Starship? And then that's how it evolved. And Emmy and Josh were really good discoveries of mine, I guess. Though I'm sure other people had discovered them before me, but I was very happy to find them. And just brought a uniqueness to the production, and a genuineness to the roles, which made me happy. Another one, Christian Anderson. Now, it's funny. I saw Christian Anderson originally on The Office, the TV series. And I was watching, I thought, this guy's really funny. I like him a lot. And turns out he was a good friend of Darren. It's like, he came to the casting and said, dude, you got to see my friend. And he came in, it's like, I know you. I'm a big fan of what you did in The Office. I think you're really cool. And I was very surprised. And there he was. And we, again, hit it off. And he's naturally really funny and very, very clever. And it was very little directing needed to be done. He just had the character there. And I'm glad we killed him off in Starship 1, and there's not much of him in Starship 2 except in a flashback. But thankfully in Starship 3, if we do a Starship 3, there will be more of him. And that makes me happy because he was too good a character. And that's the problem. You write the script, you kill off a bunch of people, but then they're actually really, really cool characters, and you want to try to find a way to bring them back. So at least in science fiction, you can do this. You can resurrect people, and there is cloning. There is always cloning and everything else in these films. So it was just very warm, heartening to me that I had a good cast of people. I was very happy about this because a good cast is hard to find. And when you find it, you want to hold on to them and you want to keep working with them and let it grow and develop and take the character somewhere. So, and here's the thing. If you look at my films, some people peak early. I'm one of these people who peaks late in life, and I have in everything. So my films may start here, and they grow, and they grow, and they get better and better. And if you look at every movie I do, with the exception of about one, I think, but generally speaking, most of my movies improve and get better and get more successful. And I like that fact because it means I've got something to look forward to. I try to change my style in every movie as well. So if you look at Starship 1, it's a certain way. Starship 2 is a different flavor. Starship 3 will be a different flavor again. And Starship 4, who knows what that will be. But the idea is that we find a flavor, we find a direction, and we grow and we build upon it. So, you could, if you can enjoy Starship 1, I think you'll enjoy Starship 2 more. And I think 3 will be another level up from that. And it's a matter of just keep pushing the envelope and improving and self-improving. It's not like, other things where you get a big hit movie and then the sequels kind of suck. I want it to go the other way. I want it to grow and develop. Though I think that in the case of Planet of the Apes, 1 and 2 kind of stood side by side. And, they've all got their own kind of things. They sort of descended down a little bit, but I like the fact that 1 and 2 kind of stood together. The same with Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars was here, and I thought Empire Strikes Back was an infinitely better film, even though I love Star Wars. So it's a matter of taking it and growing it and developing and trying to keep, any sort of thoughts about marketing out of the film and just trying to keep it more as this is a story about people and about characters. There's a lot about religion and women's rights within the film, and I'm trying to figure out where these notions came from within me. I don't know exactly. I do know that I've been in recent times, very, very offended by the fact that when you're watching these YouTube videos and they're executing women, and I won't say they, I don't mean Muslims, I don't mean Mexican cartels, I don't mean, Russian crazy people. I mean humans. I mean humans doing bad things to humans. And because of YouTube, some of the nastiest things in the world is now starting to leak out into the public sphere. And I find this horribly offensive that people would do this type of thing to another human being. And I've watched these things a couple of times, and it's not really my interest. I find this really horrible to look at, but I have seen this. And I remember one where they took this woman's head and they held her head, and she's alive, and they're just, and I'm watching it, and they're just cutting into her throat. And I'm watching this to the point where her life ends. And what point does she just completely lose it? And I'm looking at the calmness of these people. Yes, they know their head's been cut off and they're about to die, but there's a weird calmness about them, about the person who's been executed. And there's not as much fear as I thought, but then there's a human body, it's human life, and there's a point where the life is ended. And I'm shocked when I see this, and it just shows you the sanctity and the purity of life and how special and how precious humanity is. Without this spark of life, we're slabs of meat. And so any culture that will oppress men or women in such a way that they want to kill them and execute them for religious or for political reasons or whatever reasons, I'm at war with these types of people. I find these people terribly offensive. I find these people to be the enemy of mankind. And through my films and everything else, I'm forced to wage war with these people. You know, if I was maybe made a different way, I would be the guy out there trying to save people's lives and going out with guns and trying to execute the executors, or doing something, or being a badass person. I don't know if two wrongs make a right. I'm not sure what the answer to this is. But the point is, we see this, we recognize it. We must educate people, must make people aware that what they're doing is wrong. And I obviously believe a lot of people out there don't have a conscience, don't have an ability to feel or understand. And maybe that's why they feel they can just take a human life like this. It's so morally offensive to me that it's encompassing my life and my sleep and my day. And I am so pushed by this that I think through Starship, I showed an oppressive planet of women, under a religious regime. And it's not a Muslim regime. It's not a Catholic regime. It's not a Mormon regime or anything else, or Buddhist regime or anything else. It's a religious regime. It's a religion based around the worship of a leader, which is, generic and specific. And it's not trying to make a statement against religion. It's trying to make a statement about how people use that religion. And, obviously I have a lot of friends who are Muslims, and they're really good people, and they don't carry on this way. I have a lot of friends who are Christians, and they're really good people. And I have a lot of friends who are Christians who are really bad people as well. So it's about looking at who we are as humans and saying we have to make a point of standing up. And does that mean that women should rise up and overthrow their oppressors? Yes. Do they do that currently? Not so much. It always seems to be that the man aspect of rising up and doing something about oppression. And I think there's a point where women have to become more empowered and say, you have to take positive action. If you want your world to change, you have to now rise up and do things. And I guess that's my way, that's my message in Starship is, okay, if things are happening, if things are going down that are not so good, do something about it. Don't stand back. Don't stand there and just take a gun to the head or a knife to the throat. Do something beyond what being a victim is. And I think we've seen this in society. I think even during World War II, and I always thought this, why didn't the Jewish people and all the people, and not just the Jewish, the gypsies and the prisoners of war and all the oppressed people in the prison camps and the Catholics in the prison camps, why didn't these people rise up en masse and overthrow the Nazis? There was more prisoners than there were soldiers, and eventually if they all get as one big crowd, they would do something. And I think there's an oppression mentality that kind of pushes everybody down. And I'm always thinking about this. So I'm thinking there's a point where people have to stand up and rise up and fight. And yes, I do know there were some pockets of resistance during World War II, specifically, Jewish people and Dutch people and French people and, pockets everywhere fighting against the oppressors. But the majority of these people did not rise up. And I guess the examination of why they don't do this is the big question. And maybe it comes down to a select few with courage. Why would you sit back and let yourself die? What is in your head at that moment? And so that's, I guess for me, that's always the thing I'm trying to explore in Starship 1. Starship 2 goes off on a completely different journey. And, I like the fact that everything has its own flavor and texture. And I'm not passing judgment on anyone. I'm trying to explore the situation, and I'm trying to inspire and direct people into a certain way. It's just my conscience. And many people will disagree with me. And yes, have I received death threats about this? Yes. Have I received people telling me I'm wrong? Yes. And have people threatened to kill me because they think my viewpoint is incorrect? Of course, and that's the nature of it, but what's my position? Do I pay attention to these people? Do I ignore them? My feeling is I ignore them, and I push on and be a little bit private about my life and hope that they don't get in my way. But somebody has to be a voice. It's the same with Salman Rushdie. He, there was a point where he spoke out about what he felt was important, and he said the things he felt he had to say. And he had to, go on into hiding. I was 16, and my best friend's girlfriend, her dad ran a publishing company, and they were publishing a book called, I think it was In God's Name by David Yallop, who's a British author, and he wrote about how the Pope was assassinated. And he received tons and tons of death threats to the point where he had to go into hiding. And he went into hiding in Australia, where we were, and I got to meet up with him and discuss this with him. And he was in hiding because he basically told the story that, he put the theory forth that the Pope was assassinated in one of his books. And it kind of impacted his life in a very negative way, and everybody was getting death threats because people did not like the fact that, you're going to insinuate something about, a certain religious organization. So people will react badly. But I think that's the point, is that often they're hitting a nerve that, maybe your religion is not God. Your religion is not the glorious thing that you think it is. It's not God. It's not something divine. It's man-made. And that's where people then become angry and people get twisted, because when they hear a rumor that maybe it's not God ordained, but it's man-made, they get offended. And, I should know too. I was once a born-again Christian and believed, and I got very offended when people spoke about Christianity. I got very offended because I didn't like it when people would say that Christianity is a pile of bullshit or anything else. I came to my own decision many years later that it was probably not the sort of thing I wanted to be involved with. But at the time, I remember being very offended and being very angry that people. So I get it. But there's a point where you got to try and open people's eyes, and you got to do it slowly, inch by inch by inch by inch. And you look at the last 150 years, how things have changed. Slavery has pretty much, I won't say abolished, but has diminished. Women's rights have obviously, come up to a point where obviously women are still not equals, but it's getting closer and closer. And there's a point where a lot of women are more powerful than men, and that's scary for some people, but that's the way it should be. And things are changing, but it takes a generation or two to change things. You've got to start with your own voice and start with your own ideals and decisions, and take it from there. Should film just remain entertainment, or should it be something beyond that? Should it actually, challenge people? I did film school, and I studied documentary and the art of documentary making. And I think the first thing I learned was that it's all propaganda and actual bullshit. So documentaries can change the world, but often they're biased, and that's the nature of things. So anything you're going to do is biased towards a certain viewpoint. And I think if you're creating art, it should somehow challenge the viewer, somehow. It should find a way of challenging them either politically or emotionally or personally or spiritually or whatever it is. You have to challenge people somehow, otherwise it's not effective as art. I'm not claiming my films are great art or high art at all. I make movies because I like the entertainment factor. I like to be entertained. I make the sort of movies I want to see. So I'm doing it because I'm entertaining myself, let's just say. And we're on a small budget, so we're not always able to entertain to that level of, the Star Wars movies or anything else, but we are still striving for higher things than we are, would otherwise feel capable of doing. So, an artist has a choice to do whatever he wants. He wants to make a nice, pretty painting of a sunset. That's nice. But usually the good art, the art that's remembered, has a little story behind it, has a little political things behind it. It's like the Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa has a big story, and it's very interesting when you go into it. And great works of art have the hidden messages and the hidden meanings, and I like that. Obviously, you look at H.R. Giger, who passed away. There's so much message in that. It's ridiculous, but as a work of art, it's fascinating to look at, and it's a great visual medium. But his messages are so deep and profound. I like that about him. So I think the message will come out of your soul just by being who you are, and I think that's what's happening with Starship now. I didn't write Starship saying I'm going to make a message about women rising up and killing men. It just kind of evolved, and I didn't know that was the message that was going to come out. The message was supposed to be about, a guy with a spaceship and missiles holding the Federation at bay, but it developed beyond that. And I'm glad about the fact that, things will grow and develop. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of Starship 2 and 3. When you look back at it, say, what is the true message there? I can't predict the message. I don't try to push a message onto people, it just comes out. Every movie I do gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and gets more successful and is more polished. So, I'm looking forward to just continuing. I can't help but make movies. I have to make movies day after day after day. I'm just obsessed. I'm not one of these people who's going to retire. I'll die on set, I'm sure of this. Ultimately, when technology gets better, we're going to hit a level of perfection, if that ever comes. Ray Kurzweil is talking about this, the singularity that we'll one day attain, and we may be there in 50 years or 60 or 100 years, who knows. I think that makes for a boring movie. So in my universes, when I kind of build things that are kind of were once great and they're sort of going downhill. And with Starship, there was obviously a feeling that their empire was once more glorious, and it's now falling into decay. Maybe that's a reflection of our current society. Like when you build a universe or a world, like in Starship, you have to put things in that maybe are at fault and are decaying, and you have to show the faults of that universe so that people have something to struggle against. Otherwise, it's an incredibly boring universe that everything's smooth and white and lovely and generic. Kind of like Logan's Run, if you ever saw that movie. Obviously that world had a fault in the sense that in Logan's Run, when you hit, I think it's 30, whatever age it was, 28, I forget what age it was, but when you hit a certain age, you're killed off. And then everyone stays young and pretty and happy, and everything's clean. And of course, you can have sex whenever you want, you can get food whenever you want, you can do everything you want in your society, but you don't grow old because you're killed off. And that was the fault of that world. But until that point, that world was very boring and sterile. So it is boring to have a perfect world.
With over 1,300 entertainment industry guests and over 6 million viewers, live from the Pepper J Production Studio in Hollywood, California, it's the Actors E Chat Show, every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, a Pepper J production. It's the Actors E Chat Show.
Welcome to Actors E Chat. I'm your host, Tracy Birdsall. And today we are so fortunate to have a very well-known science fiction film director who also produced and directed over 500 music videos, including for Manowar overseas. So anyway, he's an amazing man. He's done tons of science fiction. And Starship Rising is out right now, and I think it's number 8 on the charts in the UK. So anyway, I'm very, very proud to introduce to you Mr. Neil Johnson.
Hey! Good morning.
So Neil.
Yes.
We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So tell us, what got you interested in science fiction in the beginning?
I think the first thing, my earliest memory, I was the age of 2, and I saw Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. And I couldn't understand how he could be on the moon and on, television at the same time. It was so confusing to me. My dad took me outside and was trying to explain the concept. And I think from that point onwards, I was hooked. All I cared about was science fiction and traveling into space, and that's it. That's my earliest memory. So from that point, I was obsessed with cameras and lenses, and here I am today.
So when did you start the process of becoming a director, and how did you go about that?
Oh, that's a good one. I directed my first music video, I think, when I was 16.
Oh.
It was a big visual effects extravaganza. I remember that. And then I applied for film school. And they didn't take me at first because they were a little bit confused by me. But they finally accepted me. It took me, I had to harass them to let me into the film school. And they let me in, and I actually graduated. And I went out into the world, and it was, it's the mid-'80s, I guess. It was really hard times. People were really negative in the world. And
explain that. Like, why would they be negative about you wanting to direct a film and to create something like that? I mean, how?
Well, you're young, and I wanted people to train me. Like, I wanted to be, shoot cameras and stuff. And I approached this famous director of photography who'd done a lot of movies, and I said, could you train me? Just teach me something. And he refused. He said, absolutely not, because one day you'll take my job. And that's, I was horrified. Then one day I met this guy, Brett Gibson, who was a cameraman at Channel 9, and he actually taught me how, what framing was and what cameras were, and really helped me out. So it's good people you meet around the bad people, So I left, I was living in Australia, I left Brisbane, and took a job at a television station as a trainee cameraman. But it turned out I knew more than anybody in the station. And, I'd already been doing my own little short films and documentaries. And after 3 months, the head of the station gave me a documentary to direct for the station. And I did that. And next minute, I was being rostered on as a television director at the age of 21. And from that point onwards, at 21, I've been a director since that time. And I did all these music videos for free. I did anything I could just to get more experience. And I just worked my butt off for years and years and years. Finally, I got, after music video number 40, somebody paid me to do it. That was for this pop star, Nicole Gibson, in Australia, and she was really nice. And from there, it just kind of grew and grew and grew, and then,
So tell me about when you did because I know you did the music videos for Manowar. So
Yes.
tell me about that experience. How did you get that? And tell the audience a little bit about that, because it's a pretty fascinating story.
Well, yeah, let's see, on that one, we probably jump ahead a bit. I'd done a lot of music videos, about 300 or 400 at that point, and a lot of, heavy metal bands in Europe and stuff. And Manowar approached me and said, look, we really need somebody who can...
These are pictures of what you're talking about right there.
Yeah, that's
really impressive.
Well, Manowar were just suddenly on the rise, having their second comeback in 2002 in Europe. And all of a sudden...
Is that you right there?
That's me directing with my friend Steve. All of a sudden, they exploded in the European market. And they were playing in front of 50,000 people.
Oh, wow, look at that crowd.
And as they expanded, so did I. So I got to do all these massive live coverages and music videos and
Oh, wow. So this is...
yeah, and
fire.
because of them, I accelerated my career dramatically. That was a thing we did called the Earthshaker, which you can see on screen now, which I was
This
directing.
look like really big budgets.
Oh, it was.
What were your budgets like on these
Well,
things?
well, that particular live show, I think we blew about €500,000 in one day on the coverage, and it was like 32 cameras. This is 2005.
Wow.
We had like every HD camera that existed in Europe at the time, and all the camera cranes everywhere. It was the biggest thing ever done at the time in Europe for a live band, and it was incredible. We had we had an orchestra on one side of the stage. The other side we have a 3-stage level of a choir. We had the band in the middle, explosions, and massive crowd, and that was the peak of my music video career, and in between that I was doing feature films, so it kind of crystallized everything.
So tell me about making your first feature film, and I mean,
Oh,
from
that's a
what I
story.
hear,
Yes.
you also made the first digital feature film.
Well,
so tell us
again,
that story.
it goes back to the negativity of people. And I'm not dissing on the country of Australia, but there were some very negative people towards me back then, who basically said, I was sat down one day and said, look, you don't have what it takes to be in the film industry. You should go and shoot weddings. And this is the head of a seriously, this is the head of a big company. The biggest production house in Australia told me this. He said, you don't have what it takes. And I said, I don't believe you. And funny, I've met the guy recently and said, well, you were wrong. And, he didn't say anything to that.
That must have felt good.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, you get over that stuff quickly. But, those sort of people push you on in a weird way. And I'm thankful for him to say that, because that's what made me go out and become a director at 21. That's what pushed me.
Right.
And so I wanted to make a feature film. I was running a production house in Australia, and I said, well, I need to make a movie. I've done 10 short films. It means nothing. It got me nowhere. So let's do a feature film. And I was on the cusp of all this digital technology, and there were a couple of companies coming in saying, because I was doing really nice, interesting work, people were giving me free equipment and saying, look, you want to try this new non-linear edit system, and it's all broadcast quality and this and that. And so I literally worked out a way to shoot a feature film for a small budget, and I shot the world's first digital feature film. As far as I know, I could be wrong.
What was it called?
The film was called Demons in My Head. This was, I think, 1997. I started doing it in 95, but finished 1997.
And did you write that too?
I wrote and directed that.
Do you write everything that you do?
I do. I don't always want to write, but it's just a necessity. The movie came out, and people said, "Oh, you're a fool. You're an idiot for doing this."
Oh, and this is the poster
That's
for
the poster
it?
for it. It got released worldwide in many
What
countries.
year was that in?
That was 97. I think got released in 99.
Okay.
Now the weird thing was, George Lucas, who did Star Wars, he came to Australia. He was scouting for locations to do Star Wars Episode 2. And he was giving a big speech at some producers' conference. And everyone was giving me, negativity because
Again.
because I don't. Because you should have shot 35 millimeter. Why did you do digital? You know, this is what they told me. This is back then. Nobody knew,
Right.
and I don't blame them for saying that. George Lucas got up on stage and said, basically called me a visionary. And said, people like Neil Johnson doing digital films. This is the future of filmmaking. And I had a chat with George Lucas and Rick McCallum, who's a chain smoker, really nice guy. Funny as hell.
I know how much you like that.
Well,
and here's this a picture of right
that's George
here.
Lucas,
There you
yeah.
go.
And I mean, I'd say he's probably one of the great inspirations in my life because, he was the only person who came on board and said, look, you're doing the right thing. And it was like, wow, this is the guy who I guess I idolized in my life has come to me. And the defining moment in my life was when I saw George Lucas standing there. He's pretty short. And I thought, the whole creative universe of Star Wars, a billion dollar franchise, is created from this guy, this one guy's brain.
Right.
I thought, that's power. That's inspiration. That's glory. And that's what keeps me going. It's like, we can have all the nice toys and the equipment and the drive, but it's in here. It's the creativity in here. And that's what pushes me on every day.
Well, and I mean, I'd like to add in, because I know you very well, that you are a visionary and that you're very genius in the way that you do things and that you can see things that other people can't see. And that's why you're able to create these.
And that's something I've learned through all the bad things that have happened in my life. And there's been a lot. You take that and you use it, and you it's like being an actor. You turn that around and you throw it back out and say, okay, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this to, make a good thing in my life.
No, I think that's a beautiful thing. We're watching Actors Eat Chat. I'm your host, Tracy Birdsall. We'll be right back after a word from just one of our sponsors. Okay, we have another chatter question.
We have an in-studio question, and they want to know, so is it difficult to direct and act in the same project?
Oh,
Well, you're not really an actor.
I have done this.
But he's done like cameos and things. Like, go ahead. And
I've had actors who didn't turn up on the day, and we're out in the desert shooting, and I had to jump in and do the scene because there's no other males around who could do it. It's extremely difficult to act and direct in a film, especially when you don't have a camera, which is how we were stuck in the desert. No, I would recommend people don't direct and act unless you've got a very good DP who can direct you as well. I get it, the ego thing, and it sounds good. I'm going to control everything. I'm going to direct. I know what I'm going to do. I would do anything to be directed by somebody. If I was acting.
I would say that even producing and acting, that you should only do it if there's another producer, because we produced and I acted, but I played a much smaller role, and then so you have to be able to commit your time completely.
Well, I often produce and direct things together, and what you do is some days you just wear the producer's hat, some days you wear the director's hat. If you're acting that day, I can only wear the actor's hat that day. I have to focus on the acting.
Right.
And I'm not claiming to be a great actor or anything,
Right.
but I've done it, so I know what it takes to be on camera. And, I act as much as I can, so I know how it feels when I work with other actors. And I love being directed. I love feedback. So I know, I guess I put myself in the position of the actor more than I should.
And it's like, even when I act and produce, I try to put down my producer's hat on the days that I shoot, because you can't deal with all of that going on inside and do the other side.
I mean, I've done 12 movies. I can't do it. I don't know how anyone really could do it on a low budget level. If you've got a massive support staff, it's a different story. We have another question, I believe.
We do have another question.
Well, thank you. The question is, can you talk to us more about Starship Rising?
Starship Rising. Okay, that was... See, I think I started working on Starship Rising 2012, and it was a big sci-fi epic film. It's kind of an angry version of Star Trek, I would say. And for me, I'd just done Alien Armageddon and Alien Dawn, which alien invasion movies. And I just wanted to get back to outer space and to blow things up. I wanted to see an epic space battle type movie, kind of like the Star Wars type thing, or what I felt Star Trek should have been, much more serious and angry. And I was lucky to get...
What are we seeing on screen here?
We're seeing Emmy, that singer-songwriter, who was one of the stars of Starship Rising, along with Darren Jacobs and a few other people. And actually, back on my acting thing, to talk about that. There's E.J. De
Yeah, I was
La
just
Pena,
going to say,
Brooke
yeah,
Lewis.
that's E.J. and Brooke Lewis.
Brooke Lewis is a great actress.
Well, E.J. De La Pena is a great actor,
was
too.
incredible.
Let's not cut him short.
Oh, no,
yeah.
no.
And Marilyn Gigliotti.
Marilyn Gigliotti from the movie Clerks.
Which has a remake coming out right now.
where Clerks 3 is coming
Yeah,
out. And
yeah.
she's, one of those, great sort of people.
Excited for her
And I
on
keep
that.
working with Marilyn all the time. I adore
Oh,
her.
what is this?
That's the spaceship. we can't really talk about that. That's Emmy again we're seeing. And it's kind of this epic science fiction movie that I guess makes me very happy to watch. I try to make the movies I want to see. And that's the now Raja Baruti. While we're talking about actors, I want to talk about her. That's Ralph Guzzo, the other side. But Raja Baruti, this amazing person, absolutely amazing person. We're talking about actors who are committed. Okay. Now I had one actress on set who had the flu and just didn't feel like coming in. I had to go and beg her on the phone every day to come into set, just because she felt a bit fluey and I don't know if I want to turn up today.
Oh my gosh, that stands for a short career.
who is this person?
like-
Why are you saying this to me? I've got all these big actors and you're saying I don't feel like coming because I have the flu. Meanwhile, we have Raja on set.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to give away her personal stuff, but she was very, very ill. And I'd say she was almost at death's door.
I've gone to work sick so many
She
times.
was so messed up. And she didn't show it 1 second. She only whispered, I'm not feeling well, just forgive me if I'm a bit
Right.
crazy. She was so ill. I mean, we're talking really ill, majorly ill. She turned up every day without knew her lines, on the ball, and this is the sort of person I applaud every time, is an actor who, despite all the chaos, wants to act more than anything else on the
Right.
planet. Acting is gold. It's life. That's Raja
this is
there.
Raja? Okay.
Yeah, amazing
It's a
person.
great picture.
She's incredible on camera, and a great person too. Really, really amazing. She's actually. I want to talk about her because, there's a lot of things in her life that maybe just aren't known public, but she's an incredible human being.
And what is this from?
Starship Rising again,
Okay.
and some of the great images. It was a major film. We shot. Look at Emmy's face. How can
Emmy
you not
has a
love
perfect
that?
face. I just
know.
love her.
We built the set ourselves. I mean, building that spaceship, I got a scar right here from building that spaceship. Darren Jacobs again, flying the Starship with E.J. De La Pena.
Okay, now show the film. Okay.
There's the scar. You can't see it. I cut it doing the spaceship, building the set. I also fell 10 feet to the floor on my back once
Oh,
off the
man.
ladder. So, people sit there and say, oh, it's an ego game. It's a glamorous world. It's not. I have scars on every piece of my body from making movies. Right here, you can't really see, but I got my hand crushed by a camera crane doing a short film once. And it was, it's just how the world is.
It's like we get our war wounds, we get our bruises and things like that, and we're
Yeah.
like all proud of them at the end of a shoot. It's like, oh, I got this bruise falling down doing this and dying.
And you've got to be, look, if you want to be an actor, you've got to be committed. And look, I expect 100% from my actors, 100%, because I give them 100%. I
do.
live, breathe, and die movies, and I will die probably directing a movie. I'm sure this is going to happen.
Wouldn't that be a great thing, though?
No.
No,
I'd
that's
like
how you go.
I'd like to finish
Not
that
that you
movie.
die early, but that you die directing.
Yeah, well, that could be. It's like
I mean, how glamorous.
I know. Well, speaking of death, okay, here's a segue. I recently? You heard about the person Davy Jones?
Oh yes, this is a great story. Okay.
This has been on my shoulders for a while.
I think we have a picture of Davy Jones too. Do
Yeah,
we have
well,
that?
you may know him from the Monkees. Going back to your childhood and everything else, when I was a young boy, I would pray to God.
Waiting for the picture. There's the picture. Yeah.
That's the last photograph ever taken of Davy Jones in the world before he passed away.
And that's a great picture of Davy Jones too.
Well, let me tell you the story of that.
Right, Pepper?
I used to pray. I used to pray to God, please God, can I turn out just like Davy Jones? Please God, can I be
You'd
Davy
be
Jones?
so much shorter.
Well, yeah, I was the shortest guy in my school.
What happened?
I was the runt of the litter. I wanted to be Davy Jones. I thought, if nothing else, can I please be Davy Jones?
How'd that work out for you?
Well, I got taller and he was just this British boy and he had a nice voice and the girls liked him, a little haircut. And I thought,
The girls really liked
that's
him.
the sort of guy I want to be. And I grew up to be a complete different person. However, then I met Davy Jones, and this is just before he passed away. I met him, and they were doing a documentary, and I said, "Look,
another?
that's how I want it to be." That was it's the 80s. That's how I want it to be. And I met Davy Jones, and I said, "It's such a pleasure to meet you. Did you know every night when I went to bed, I would pray for 6 years running that I would be Davy Jones. I would be you, and now I've met you." And he looked at me and said, "Thank God God didn't listen to you." But he had this look in his eyes, and it's like he met himself. And I had a photograph with him, and then he passed away the next day. And it was like the most horrifying thing. Did I cause his death?
Did you kill Davy Jones?
Because he met his alter ego, the man who wanted to be him so much. And it was horrifying for me. You know, he was just a bit, oh, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. And he passed away. It was a horrible
That's
story.
probably actually what he was thinking too, is that was the weirdest thing he'd ever heard.
Did I cause his death? He must have. So, you know, there's people like that in your life, you know. Anyway, I don't know why we got onto that story, but it's just, it's one of those things that happens.
Because you also...
Oh, look, Starship Rising. Back to that, the trailer of Starship. It's right now released in the UK. We're on. I think we hit number 7 or 8 in.
Well, I know it was 8.
Tesco.
Did it make it to 7?
No, it got down to 5 in some
Oh.
places. But you know, we're in the top 10 in the UK, and you can buy it in Tesco and HMV and all the stores in the UK. I'm very happy with that. It's an epic film. We finished the movie in 4K resolution, shot in the red camera as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm always trying to push that level of trying to get beyond, you know, the standard standard sort of films. It's 4K, which means IMAX quality. We have a commercial break coming up.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I like the way he keeps noticing that it's commercial break time.
I
That's
talk
supposed to be
too
my
much.
job. We're watching Actors Eat Chat. I'm your host, Tracy Birdsall. We'll be right back afterward with one of our sponsors.
I'm going to count down from 5.
Do it. All set.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Excellent.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, we're ready to go.
All right, we got. You ready?
Give me a countdown.
Okay, we're going to count down from 3. So, 3, 2, 1. That was pretty super spectacularly awesome.
Target 1-4. Oh, sorry, my fault.
okay.
Reset. Okay.
Action.
Coming around.
Target 1 forward, 1 aft. Reduce power to 15,000.
Captain, the dark cloud is still moving.
Cut. How was that? Oh yes.
Oh my gosh.
It's rolling. Okay, Jim. 3, 2, 1.
Oh my god. That's so scary.
Good. Let's go for this. Will be a real one now. Okay, all set, and action.
Nice knowing you.
Oops, that's a big one. Oh dear.
Jason, cut the power! Shields are gone, Captain!
Do you like that one?
I got enough. I can do it again.
You like it?
Will you do it again, just in case we get a better one?
Oh, cool. Red light now. Was that in the last one?
No.
That's what.
That's what we're waiting on.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, the shields are gone, Captain!
That really comes out of nowhere.
Sorry. But that's just the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, wait, one question. Do you want the wrist break too?
No, just the...
Just the breathing.
Yeah. Need more than that?
That's funny.
Just want me to stay right here?
I had one that I like to do, but then I realized
You go.
Oh, was it? Yeah, fully sharp on this.
So Karen.
Yeah, got nothing. You know, there was nothing going on. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it. Are you ready? Take your time. As soon as you're ready, we're ready.
Oh.
Very nice.
Oh, I could have been much closer. Should we go up and clear the flame? Lovely. Clear.
Fire in the hole.
Very nice. Cameras are recording, confirming. Yep. All right. It's a safe distance. This is us. Nasty bitch. Very good. Like that one. Felt good. We're clear.
Clear. Fire in the hole. In the hole.
Nice. Very nice. Quite courageous.
Land over here. Yeah.
You got some debris there, huh?
You had debris going.
Fantastic. Well done. Well done, boys.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks.
Good job, boys.
Props, Scott. Thank you.
Hi, I'm director Neil Johnson. I've directed 10 feature films, 500 plus music videos, been a director for 26 years. And all I really care about is doing science fiction films. And I guess people want to know why I do science fiction. Well, I came to an interesting realization a couple of years ago. My dearest friend, Phil Bertham, passed away. And it made me realize that life is hanging on a thread. And I hear a lot of astronauts speaking about when they go into space and they look down upon the Earth. And it's this blue globe hanging in space, and basically the whole Earth is just hanging on a thread, and we can be destroyed at any point by solar flares or heavy asteroid hit or anything else. Our existence is very, very fragile, and we spend our time worrying about small matters, having wars about this and that. When you look upon yourself in a universe that is possibly populated by no one but ourselves, I know it's statisticians say that there's probably about 1,000 planets in our galaxy right now that harbor intelligent life, but we don't know this. This is just conjecture, and it's very possible that we are the only intelligent, self-aware beings in the whole universe. It's possible, or not, and we may never know. The burden on our shoulders is that we have a responsibility to witness the universe and see the universe in its existence and explore it, because if we are the only thing there is and we pass away, then the universe goes unremembered, unrecognized. So for me, the burden of existence is that we get out in the universe and we explore, and we go to other planets, and we go to Mars, and we go to Titan, and we find ways to exist on these worlds. And I feel this is really the most important charge of mankind. It's a little bit sad that this world is so focused on small matters, and I think we as a race of beings should be focused, number one, on space travel, and dare I say this, genetic manipulation, so that we can exist in other worlds and so we can propagate ourselves across the universe, because we may, as human beings, not be able to exist on any other planet but Earth, and the only way we will exist in the galaxy on other worlds would be to modify ourselves so we can withstand the pressures of the universe, withstand the different atmospheres, the different environments. And so I charge every scientist and every astronaut that this is what their focus should be. And I charge every government with the fact that this is what they should be looking upon, is getting ourselves off this planet as quickly as possible, because we live in a very fragile world, and we are very fragile in our existence, and without this notion we will soon perish, and there'll be no one there to remember us.
I grew up in the twilight of the great empire.
We oppose this ridiculous war against the Terra Nostra.
The Federation flourished, and the people were censored.
You people are nothing but warmongers.
And a new order would soon arise.
Old Earth is to be vaporized.
There's no more time for discussion.
At 2300 hours, we strike.
The Federation are bombing their own planets?
And they're blaming us.
Blast shield! Freeze!
Thrusters online.
Shields are gone, Captain!
Open fire!
We gotta go now!
We're gonna blow!
The reactors are critical!
Ramming speed!
So where did the idea of Starship originally come from?
The idea of Starship originally came from, I think one of my favorite movies is The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek II. I loved the way Kirk and Khan were battling it out in two different spaceships. That for me was one of those great moments in cinema. And I love the fact that, as Captain Kirk and Khan Noonien Singh battling it out in space in these two giant warships. I think that was the part of the inspiration for the film. The other part of the inspiration for me was a British TV series from the 70s called Blake 7. Now, very few people may know about this. It was this very low budget, visually campy, but interesting, I guess BBC's answer to Star Wars back in the 70s when they didn't have a lot of money. It was created by a guy called Terry Nation. And Terry Nation, for those of you who know anything about science fiction, he was the guy who was responsible for the Daleks in Doctor Who. And he was an amazing writer. And he was all about characters, about people interacting. And if you watch Blake 7, it's got some amazing character moments in it. And my thought was, I heard a rumor that Blake 7 was going to start up again as a TV series. And so I thought, that's great. I'm so excited. I was watching Blake 7 regularly all the time, and I kind of, when I wrote Starship, it kind of came from that. And there's a little tribute to Blake 7. Every planet in Starship is named after a planet in Blake 7. So if you look at every planet name we have, it's all ripped off Blake 7. And I did that as a little tribute to such a great show. I mean, aside from that, there's really not a lot of similarities. I also like the concept that, if you had a nuclear submarine full of nuclear missiles and you sat off the coast of the United States, you could pretty much hold the whole country at ransom because you were basically armed with a whole stack of nuclear weapons. And you could pretty much dictate to the government, as to what to do by holding your trigger on such such a dangerous weapon. So that was the idea of Starship. It's Worthy took the righteous role of saying, my government is not doing what it should be, or my military is not doing what it should be. So I'm going to take control of the Starship, and I'm going to hold the whole of Federation at ransom. And let's see what happens.
So Neil, where do the themes of government versus religion cross in Starship?
There wasn't a lot of crossover, but even the overseer himself in the film claims that he's a god, and he even believes he's a god. His own line, "I am a fucking god." And there are points where either religious or government leaders believe they are God.
Why do you have such strong female characters in all of your movies?
This is where I get a little dreamy, I guess, in the sense that I see the plight of women in certain foreign countries, the way they're treated. I have a big problem with this because I guess I was brought up in a household where, women should be equal to men. And, a lot of it is not genetics, it's upbringing, it's education. And I see viral videos of women who maybe did something wrong. And, this really affects me badly. I've seen videos where women, some guy will grab a woman's head, pull out a knife, and just literally slice her head off until the head's off completely. This is a shocking thing to do, to especially to women, to any person. But to do this because a woman was doing something wrong sexually or whatever it is, or being her own person, or having stones thrown at her to the point where she's pulverized, her brain smashed in because she stood out against the oppression in her country, or the way men treated her, or because she was too good looking or too sexy, because the men were kind of like, oh wow, wow, I'm attracted to her, I can't control myself, so I'm going to rape her, and then I'm going to blame it on her and say it was her fault. And this is happening a lot in society and all over the world right now. Men are getting all religious and trying to control themselves, and they see a woman and it gets them horny, and then they rape the woman, and then they kill her, and they blame the woman for this. And this is disgusting. There is no excuse for this. There's no reason for this. And that's what makes me really angry. That's what really pisses me off. I have a friend of mine who she's East German lady, and she wrote a couple of books about her life. And I remember the story about in her book. She being East German, lived in a slightly oppressive society. She ended up being a flight attendant and meeting a man from the Middle East, and marrying him. And her friend also married the guy from the Middle East as well. Now this woman, this German woman, was trapped in this marriage, and she was being treated really badly, to the point where she was locked up and treated like a prisoner and beaten, and I mean, we were talking really sick. She was on the point of dying, because her husband was treating her basically like a slave in this Middle Eastern country. And I'm not saying all Middle Eastern people are like this, because most of them are not. But, this was the exception. But somehow in this, this also happens in the United States as well. But this was the situation. She went into this woman's home. She got her out of the house, and she smuggled her onto a plane and got her out of the country under a false passport. And, there was a terrible uproar and death threats and everything else. I never forgot that. And I thought, there are women in cultures all over the world that need rescuing, and that need to become strong, and need to fight, and need to stand up. And so in Starship, you see the women in this culture. You see the women oppressed and beheaded for standing up to men or standing up to the government or whatever it is. And, women are not treated as equals or not treated with respect. And one day, the women get angry, and they form a secret alliance, and they get weapons, and they join with other, entities around the galaxy, and they rise up and they overthrow the government. And they do this because of the way they're being treated, because they say no more will we be treated like second-class citizens. They will kill, they will do whatever it takes. So, is there righteous killing in this world? I don't believe in killing, but in this situation, the women chose to rise up and to kill the men and to take over the government and to behead people because they had been beheaded themselves. I don't know if two wrongs make a right, but that's what, sometimes, yes, a violent revolution is needed to change society.
In Starship, you're suggesting that government combined with religion is in fact the reality. But in our everyday lives, they're seen as two totally different things. How do you respond to this?
Well, I'm always interested in the people who are in control, especially in my films, and this will come out in later films as well. People who are rulers, what is their motivation, I guess? And I understand, if you see a society that's kind of messy and losing control, like the Emperor Constantine would have seen, a society, the Roman Empire was getting a bit fragile. What can you do to unite people and bring them together and control it? It's all about control. And the overseer's intentions were to control the government and to bring people, into control and into line, so that together we can all progress. I think, the overseer, and I'm sure many people like the Emperor Constantine had good intentions, and there was a benefit to uniting government and religion. There is a distinct benefit to this. So we have to look at those perspectives of these people. Do they have the rights to do that? Of course, the overseer then went too far. In the second movie, he found this virus that would make people more robotic and more, yes, master, no master, I'll do whatever you say, sir. So, his level of control overtook his feeling for, preserving the human race. And he felt he has to control everyone ultimately and make everyone his puppets. And that's when it gets corrupted. So it's a fine line. Wisdom is needed.
Is it easy to become corrupted when it's stemmed from power?
If somebody's going to be in charge, they have to be wise. And it could be any age, but they should be wise people. And that's, and you can see testament of this, like President Clinton, great guy, seemed to be a really nice guy. But this rubbish with Monica Lewinsky and all that stuff, it's like, didn't you get over that when you were young? Didn't you get past that level? He was over 50, I guess, when that happened. I don't know if I'd want to be in that situation. If I was in that situation, I probably wouldn't play those sort of games. But, maybe there was something he didn't learn in his younger life. And that's the corruption of power. And that's, if we don't learn our lessons when we grow up, if we don't live life, then we'll carry our baggage and we'll throw our baggage upon society.
There's a rumor that you've already shot the sequel to Starship. Is this true?
Whenever you do a film, it's a lot of work and effort. And I decided to shoot 2 movies back to back rather than just do one film and then wait to see if it's going to be successful or not. I assumed that people would like it a little bit. And I figured that if I do this movie now and then shoot the sequel at the same time, by the time, people see Starship, they'll want a little bit more. And so I did Starship 1 and Starship 2 together. And it was just easier on the crew and the actors as well, because some days we're shooting movie number 1, some days we're shooting movie number 2. And it made life much more simpler and much more enjoyable. We were able to explore the characters a lot more too. And I've finished Starship 1 already, and I've looked at a rough cut of Starship 2. And Starship 2 is very, very enjoyable from a character perspective. The characters really come alive in the second movie. So I'm very glad we did 2 movies back to back.
Do you have any regrets?
I wish I shot 3 films actually, because always there's regret when you do something. And if I ever do another Starship movie, I will probably shoot film 3 and 4 back to back as well, because it's too much at stake. There's too much fun. There's too much story to tell.
What was the initial brief for Starship?
Well, when Neil first approached me with Starship, he told me that's an angry movie. And that was actually like probably that word right there just almost said it all. Angry. It's an angry movie, and he told me I want a really dark score. It's like the darker you can get with it, the happier I will be. And so, well, I had to put my head around it, because even though this is totally the kind of music, the kind of projects that, got me to become a film composer to start with, that was probably... Starship is the first time where I can really put my hands on a project where, that's it, go full scale with it. It's pretty much how it is. Like, you make it dark and you just, go with it. And so it took some research. It took also a lot of thinking.
So how did you find the darkness for the main theme?
It's strange to explain, but the first instrument that came in my mind was piano. And it's weird, because you'd think that wouldn't be the first thing, but for some reason I first envisioned something very simple with piano, and then that's where that big first hit of brass came in my mind. And then a sort of clock rhythm where all the string section does that, and it just grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it grows into the moment where the next big picture I had in mind still was the sequence that Neil showed me, where John Worthy is being punished right away as he just got engaged into the Federation. He is being attached to the hull for the first taking off of the ship as a punishment, and we'll see if he survives. And that was also a very strong picture, because first of all, it's so unusual, it's so original. I was like, wow, that's such a beginning. And I had that picture. He had shown me those shots, so I remembered how we see the guy attached to the hull, and it just goes in the air, And I was like, that's it. That's gonna be the theme where the melody just like keeps going up and up and up and up and up, and to the point where it actually reaches the full range of the French horns that start really low. And as they reach space, it finally ends on the very last note that a French horn can play. So that's pretty much what I had in mind. Funnily enough, when finally Neil gave me the cut, there was very little to change, except it was longer than what I envisioned when I first made the film. So all I had to do is to reorganize it. But there are sections of it that were almost like I actually had scored it to the pictures. It was already there. There was just a few details to tweak here and there, but overall, it's almost like the timings were perfect, and that's, I always get a kick out of that. That's the proof that it's gonna be smooth for the whole film right there.
How did the composing play out for you? Did Neil guide you at all?
In this case, what I really appreciate about our relationships, like right away he told me that he was trusting my judgment on it. And usually the way it goes in a case like this, we started pretty much in a standard way where he loved the theme. Like, he got back to when I first sent him the theme, he was like, oh my god, yep, that dead on, that's gonna work. Which made me really happy. So Neil loved the theme, and from there, like, since he had basically, like, at this point signed up on the theme, like, for me, like, as a film composer, usually if the director is really on to the main theme, then it's really just a matter of developing that and making sure we always stay in that. As long as we stay in that, this should be fine. What happens is usually we score the first 10 minutes and see if we're still on the same page. Like, you heard the theme, you like it, but this is how it develops, do you still like it as much? And yes, it was the case. And so from there, it was a very, very smooth process, because it seemed that, I feel fortunate enough in this project that I think I captured Neil's vision of what he was expecting the score to do for that film.
What was the biggest problem area for you? Was there anything that was difficult for you at all?
It's packed with action, and there is a lot going on. There's a lot of plots going on in Starship, and particularly as we start to reach the second half of the film, the challenge sometimes for me was how to make the music follow the action. Even though we are in one scene, there's a huge battle, but then we come back and there's another group of people that are doing their own thing as part of the main plot, and how to make the music to switch with that without somehow spoiling what's going on. And so sometimes I actually had to redraft a few things, like I just like remove. What's funny is that something that also Neil and I were on the same page is that sometimes less is better. And so I always kept that in mind. And sometimes it would just be about removing instruments.
Because there's so many battles in Starship, was it hard to find different composing strategies for each scene?
Battle music is actually very intense. It's very intense to make. You are exposed for like 13 hours a day to and big percussions and big things in your face. And so I actually found myself exhausted at some point. And I had just came up with at least 3 big battle music that turned out, like really how I envisioned it. I was very happy with them. And there is that after that, we start to get to see even more of the battles going on Terra Nostra. And I remember it's like for 2-3 days I was just like, I don't know what to do. I've already done that, And so this time I did it. I actually decided to leave it alone and go score the end of the film, because Neil had just finally given me the last piece of the film, because a lot of it was happening as, this is how it works. It's like basically we were progressing as I was scoring. Neil was a little ahead of me in terms of editing, and so was sending me some part of the film. I had most of the film. I was still missing the very end, and he had sent me the very end, and that allowed me for a break, because as I was discovering the rest of the film, funnily enough, I was exhausted for big battle music, but here was the end of the film, which turned out, personally, I think it's my best track of the whole. This one I prefer.
So what was the inspiration for The Overseer?
I had the inspiration right away. It's like I saw it, I knew exactly what to do, and I was like, I guess I'm just gonna take a break since we're on a deadline. I still need to come up with music, so let's do that. I scored the end, and funnily enough, scoring the end gave me that relief that I needed. And then I went back and I basically I gave everything I had in those last cues of battles. The whole process was pretty awesome at this point because I was able to finish it and basically link the end with what was going on, and that just I think it worked fine. I was very happy with it.
So did Neil let you do your own thing, or were you able to breathe throughout the film?
The thing that I really enjoyed working with Neil as a filmmaker is that indeed he did leave spots, a lot of spots for the music to breathe, which is really rare nowadays in action movies. And I've actually had the opportunity to meet with composers such as John Ottman, who complains about that nowadays they just don't let the music breathe anymore. And it's a style, maybe people like it or not, but it sounds like most of the time it could be helped. And a Starship works very well, and it's very smooth in that way, that even though it's a grand angry sci-fi movie with lots of battles, very dark plots, and a very fast cut action packed movie, it still has the time. He's got those grand shots. That's some of the shots for the kissing scene, for example, is like right there, I could let my imagination just go with it. It has that beautiful dawn shot there. I don't know how he came up with it. It's so beautiful. And so that was very inspiring. And then those planets shots also, where it's that's all I've always wanted to score. It's like a giant on the big screen, and you just see that big panoramic of a planet with space, and then the ships flying by, and it's short. Truth is, some of them are not as long, but are just enough so that the music can just take the spots that it needs, and then just go back and keep complementing the pictures. And so that's something that I really enjoyed working with Neil in that regard, is that he definitely, it's nice to see Neil as a filmmaker has such a great understanding of the relationship between the pictures and music. And right there, I always had a little smile because I'm like, I know here, that's my spot here. I know it was left for me.
Now tell me, what was the inspiration for The Overseer?
The Overseer theme, before that's another thing that I had in mind from conversations we had even before we started laying down any notes on Starship, is that Neil had already told me that he had shot the sequel for Starship. The Overseer, basically the second film, really, The Overseer, that's gonna be his moment. And so Neil pointed out to me that really whatever theme The Overseer has is really gonna be thematically the theme of the second film. That's a giant clue as far as what am I gonna have to come up with for that particular character, because whatever I come up with is gonna be like a giant influence on whatever's coming up on the next feature.
How did you approach it?
The way I approached it is as a theme of a full story, not just a theme of a character, not just a leitmotif for him, but really a grand theme that covers not only him but part of the story. Funnily enough, the way it worked, I actually was able to come up with the theme just like a spectator watching the film. As you get to discover him, I had the first bits of inspiration for the notes that goes with him, but it's really how we get to progress that the pictures told me really how is that theme really gonna be complete. And of course the big moment was Neil had told me right away, is like when he takes off from Terminus to go on his journey, is like right here, and we want to hear his theme. And so I had enough scenes of him to have the basic of it so that I can make it basically go full scale for that very moment. And as we also worked on the introduction, basically the very final notes, the very final texture of the theme took place when finally I was exposed to the history we get to see of the overseer, which I thought was really cool. I mean, it's like right there, the theme I had come up with, and seeing more of the background of the story, like the whole thing made sense. And all of a sudden, really, like my goal here was just like, this needs to be so dark, I really don't know what I'm gonna use. Like Neil actually gave me a phone call as I was working on it, wondering how I was doing, and I'm telling him, well, that's funny, you're just calling me, I was just asking my wife, what instrument could I use that is really dark and dirty? That's so funny. And so Neil calls, and I just tell him that, oh yeah, I was just wondering about that. And so we had a little conversation about that. And then I went back to it, and funnily enough, that turned out to be like a one night. I worked all night on it. For a long time I hadn't gone to bed at 5 a.m, but that's the other thing, is I think like I needed to be in the silence of the night. Like I needed to be in that you feel alone, you feel everything's different at night. And I hadn't done that in a while, and I think helped a lot to just like work at night, no disturbance, nothing, and just being like basically freaking myself out in front of that one sequence of the overseer and coming up with something as dark as I could. It was a challenge too, because it was like, how dark can I go? Like, am I going to fail myself here? Like, is it gonna be as dark as I want it to be? So unfortunately only time will tell us. I mean, Neil really liked it. He told me right away the next day when I seen to him, like, wow, that's really dark. And I've re-listened to it many times. Like usually I like to re-listen to the music I've made at least like a week later, because all of a sudden I get more like a fresh ear. And sure enough, that's, to this day at least, that's the darkest theme I came up with.
Is there anything that you're looking forward to?
Well, I look forward for Starship 2. I mean, I'm so ready. It's like scoring Starship 1 and knowing the direction that Starship 2 is taking. I'm basically already preparing for war, pretty much. It's pretty much what it is. It's like I'm gearing up to just like come up with, like, I'm already thinking, okay, how I develop all that, how I'm gonna make it even more awesome in the second one. I'm looking forward to that.
You said you wanted to work with me. I didn't think that would happen, but it did. And I was like, wow, these things really do happen. You said you were writing a part with me in mind. I was like, okay, sure. And it actually happened. Gustav goes, so, it's kind of close. And then I came in, I auditioned out of the studio out in where were we? We were at Canoga Park. And it was really, kind of great. I mean, I felt really at home and ready to go, and I saw some of the set, and, I really felt excited, and brought some people.
Is there anything that you would like to change on set, or anything embarrassing or bad that happened?
No, I think, no. I mean, I think I did the best I could at that time. I think I realized that I kind of been walking a lot and gotten in better shape. I had to lose a little bit. You realize, it's just rigorous fighting and doing, and and I had a couple other movies where I did fight scenes after that, and I realized I really got to kind of stay in very good middle-aged shape, because I'm being called to do these things, and have love interests like Christine Mosley, Christina and Raja. You kind of have your shit together. As far as difference, no, I think I don't think so. I think I would know my way more around a sci-fi set now, though. I think there would be a different kind of take on it, and maybe a different confidence. It was kind of moving with it. Well, it all works for the camera, though. If you're open to it, your vulnerabilities can be just as powerful as you knowing what you're doing. So I don't really think anything's necessarily bad. I think it's kind of all the way it should be. When you got a good director, he'll tell you when it's off and when it's not there. I just think I would be ready for the green screen differently than this time around, because you just need the experience of doing it, And it wasn't hard. But that's where, going back to the actor studio, you use whatever you need. You know, whether it's an image or a this or a that. You know, technique is there for when your instincts aren't working. When your instincts are working, just get out of the way and let it happen. But sometimes people can get overly techniqued and miss that, hey, this person's giving me everything I need right now.
So your training helped a lot with the green screen and being able to...
Yeah, your training helps. Yeah, I mean, I kind of relied more on Neil. Really, the imagination was a little bit better, and just relaxing. You know, you got to relax your body enough to just let it happen. And you get used to more and more, you know, not doing a lot, doing something. I mean, Shakespeare helps in sci-fi movies because you got to use your voice sometimes, you know, and it's rigorous depending on the scene. If they're big kind of battle scenes and stuff like that. So going back to doing some Shakespeare and stuff and just being warmed up and ready to go. But I had met Robert Duvall once at a SAG screening. Got to really talk to him for a long period of time. He's one of my favorite actors. And the one thing I noticed about him was that he really listened. He was so genuinely interested in what you had to say and curious and kind of loves gossip. He's a very funny guy in a weird way. And I really took that from him. I thought, you know, it was an acting lesson just now. I spoke to him for like, you know, God, it must have been 15 minutes about everything, because he's also a member of the Actors Studio, and, you know, and also Meisner, trying to work with Sandy Meisner and all this other stuff. But he was like, you know, what's going on over there? Yeah, you know how he is. He's kind of like laughing and doing his thing. And but he really listens. You know, I thought that was really fabulous. And he's like, yeah, it's got to be 79 when I met him or something. And, you know, his eyes are just blazing. And I thought, wow, what a way to go through life. You know, it's like he's so full of life, you know. And I think that's what makes him, you know, so great on screen at times. He's so there. And I think that's something you can always go back to as an actor. I would say if there's any foundation for me, it's that. Get back with the partner, you know, when you can. Or the experience of the green screen, like in the sense of your partner is now the green screen, or what you're doing, you know. But that's...
Tell me a bit about your character. And how did you get into the mode to be able to... I don't know what I'm saying here. But yeah, how did you get into the mood just to be able to, like... It's such a powerful character. Like, how'd you...
Well, you know, first you're like the general, then you've got to, you know, you have to kind of get over your own fears of like, well, can I be a general, you know? Maybe I'm a captain, am I really a general? You know, all the insecurities actors go through. I think the little bit of everything, it just adds up over time, you know. I think looking at the piece, like I said, being on set and having to kind of push myself a little bit the first few days was really helpful. You know, having to get the commands going, get the strength going, and just let go of, like I said, any worries about being good, bad, or indifferent. Just command those ships and get it done. I think that was, you know, Neil's direction, and it was very good for me, because you just have to let go, you know, and you have to let go on the set after a while. You can't worry about what you planned. You are the character, you know, you're doing the best you can, and you'll find your way. I think the costuming was great. I think, you know, there was some nice costuming. I think the lighting, the ship helped, you know, the practicals helped. Christina was there the first day. She was encouraging and terrific, and kind of the warrior, you know, goddess behind me, and so there was a lot of good stuff going on right away. I think Mark Zickery was there, you know, quickly, who I adore and like so much, and wouldn't have had this film had I not read for him and met Neil. And he's also been a real champion and a friend and a mentor as well. I've taken his mentor class. But I think you get in little by little. You look at the language, you look at the dialogue. We were doing 2 movies at once, so it was complicated. You trust the director in that part, you know, Neil's experience, so you relax and let go. But you, little by little, try to kind of ground yourself and find out, how much do I need, how much do I not need? And you start to, little by little, kind of find your way. And I think just by doing the actions, and even if when you feel it or when you don't, you start to little by little kind of just jump in and get over that threshold. And before you know it, you start to feel the energy of battle, which, you know, you can get in, like, just like you, if you were, you know, you were an Israeli army officer, you know, you'd be that person, you know.
So you learned quite a lot on set of Starship.
I did learn a lot. Sorry?
In a sense, you learned quite a lot.
I learned a lot. It was a really great experience for me. I mean, it was great to have, you know, the kind of anti-hero, good, you know, bad guy turned good guy was a great turn for me. And it was great, you know. And I think also the dialogue was well written. I related to the political content within it, of freedom, stuff like that, loyalty, honor, strength. Those are all things that I think are important to me. I'm very loyal to my male friends in a way. Not that I'm not loyal to my female counterparts as well, or loved ones or lovers or girlfriends, but not that I have so many. Let's backtrack that. I wish.
You did say plural.
I did say plural. Yes. Anyway, so it had a lot of what I was saying before, like, your loyalties in the world, your male bonding in a way, and then also it was right up my alley with Raja's character and being undermined, and the love interest and the confusion, which is things I really like to play.
It was a much bigger part, more than 1 or 2 lines, and it was just fast-paced and really fun. And I'd never worked with a green screen before, or with robots.
Was it hard, do you think?
No, it really wasn't. I think everything was all set up. Neil really set up the whole atmosphere. It was perfectly easy to imagine, and it was just fun. We just went with it. There wasn't really much time to stop and think and make it too difficult. We just kind of went with it, and it was awesome.
Do you find like working on green screen is similar to theater? Are there any similarities?
Sure. I mean, I think when you're working with a green screen, you are pretending that something is there, and when you're on stage and there's a huge audience, I think you kind of, although you play to that sometimes, you kind of pretend that they're not there. You have to block out a lot. So it's kind of similar in that it's opposite in that respect, I think. I just made that up.
No, I don't think that's fair. Now, there was a lot of let's talk about the vibe on set. Because there was a lot of jokes being made, and you seem to be instigating a lot of the jokes.
Yeah. I heard you were really quite the comedian on set too.
I made
talk from everyone else.
Well, I made one joke that I incorporated into every single sentence I spoke.
What was the joke?
Well, it was one word. It was space. Everything was space, like this space interview. And Neil, I became known as Captain Space Hair, and everything was having a spacey day, or space lasagna for lunch. Yeah, so everything was space because we were in space. I was trying to help Neil develop the atmosphere. I was trying to help make it so easy for everybody to feel as if they were fighting the Federation in space, as if we were on a starship in space and not in the not on a set. I was trying to help.
Is that one of your techniques?
It will be.
Acting.
Yeah, from here on out. It seemed to work out really, really well.
Anything embarrassing happened on set? Just give me something. To yourself or to anyone else that you thought was quite hilarious?
Let me see. Didn't Darren fall or something, or a set piece fell on him or something? No, not really that I recall.
Knock his tooth out?
I think he did, but I wasn't there. It was a fight scene, right? And he got hit by a girl, too. Not that there's anything wrong with being hit by a girl. You know what I'm saying. I think he did get a tooth knocked out.
What about with you? Anything?
I don't think so.
You were just watching everyone else break the set, weren't you?
Yeah.
Tell us about what they were doing.
I'm sorry, I don't recall any specifics. I do recall one of the actresses was working on. She was steering something, and I think she busted the steering mechanism, which was like a joysticky kind of thingy, and I think they had to kind of fix it for a second, and then she went back into it and was just so into it that it kind of broke again, but
what was it like working with Darren?
It was a lot of hard work. You have to pick up the slack with Darren. Darren is he's a great guy, and he knows his lines and all, but it's like, I don't know. It was great. I love Darren. He's a friend. He was a friend before the film. Hopefully he'll be a friend after. We had a lot of fun. It was hard sometimes to not laugh with Darren, because we know each other relatively well. It was, some of the lines were, very space oriented, and we are Earthlings. So it was kind of silly to say some of the things and think about us outside of the situation, inside of the situation.
And you was responsible for you getting cast.
He was, yeah.
Tell us the story of the cast.
Darren was involved in the film, and he said, "Oh, I'm doing this film, and you'll be great for this part. Drayson, you'll be great." And I said, "Okay, great." But I'm kind of like, "Yeah, okay, cool." And then I can't focus, and I'm off doing something else. And he went away. We had another friend who was coming in, too, to audition for a part. She was in the film as well. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't know, should I really audition? Thinking to myself, doing this whole little show in my head. And finally he's like, "Did you send your stuff? Send your stuff already." So I said, "Oh, finally." And I did. But it was late. Like, Neil was already, like, past the point of, interviews. And he was like, "You're a friend of Darren's. I'll squeeze you in." So I came in. He's like, "Hey, I recognize you. You were in the office." And did the interview. And he was like, "Great." And then I got the email that I got the part.
What'd you do? Did you have a little party?
I did. I had a little party at my computer.
Party in the pants.
Hey, this is weird.
No, I'm kidding. What's the relationship like with you and Darren? Like, explain that to me. How'd you guys meet, and are you guys really close?
Yeah. We're close. We work together. And we've hung out. He's one person at work that I really kind of took to, and we would hang out outside of work a little bit. He's been over the house, and he's just a good friend. I've read he's an author as well, and so he would send me the stuff that he writes. So I read his book, loved his book. You should read his book if you haven't read his book, Animal Empire. It's great. So we joke around, we kind of make fun of each other. But it's all done with love, brotherly love. And we also have mutual respect for each other, I think he's a talented guy. He's a really talented actor. I thought he did a great job in the film. He's, from what I saw of all my part of the film and what I've seen, what he's done, he's like the glue, really, You follow him for at least a long while. And I think he just did a really great job. Stand up.
Let's talk about your character a bit. The character Drayson, to somebody who's not seen the movie, obviously talking about his hidden base and his technology and being the engineer, but he's a civilian and everything else. What can you tell me about his character?
I think Drayson is, if Scotty and Han Solo had a very, very handsome, very charming, very talented baby, that would be Drayson. That's what I think. He's a technological wizard. He's almost a god, if you will, creating these robots and working in the whole cloning field there. There would be no Starship were it not for Drayson. Am I right? See? Yeah. And he's just kick-ass. The way he fires a gun, you want Drayson on your team.
What's his personality like? Does he evolve as a character throughout the movie, Drayson?
Yeah, I think he's kind of cynical a little bit in a way. He's kind of secretive and cynical, but then he kind of, not necessarily cynical, of course, against the Federation and all, but I think he's guarded, and he lets Worthy in. I know that they've always been friends, but I think through the course of the film, they get a little bit closer, and he sees they have more of kind of like a brotherhood, I guess, if you will.
And there was that scene we shot. We did a reshoot at
Mm-hmm.
the end where you and Worthy had a great moment together. I mean, I love the scene. It was one of those golden moments, at least for me. Originally, you died at the end of the first film.
Yeah.
You died, but can you tell me the story of how it evolved that you might be alive?
I don't know if I can understand it myself.
Well, he had secrets, and he was hinting that something.
Yeah.
Really dead.
So, Drayson had, created the Starship. He's worked on, what is the robot's name? Rortak. Yeah, so Drayson has been working with robots. He created Rortak, the very humanoid, robotic being. In the first film, Drayson is killed. It's the end of Drayson. He's got this big piece of Starship in his heart. But he's got all these secrets. He's been working on, the cloning, and bionics, if you will, I guess. You take the bio and the mechanic, and you put those together, and maybe Drayson comes back to life, you know, with a little bit of help of his amazing technological knowledge. Yeah, did that explain that? Yeah?
Yeah, there's a hint that he might be alive. Well, he's in the second movie somehow.
He's in the second movie. Could it be a flashback? Could he be a clone? Could it be the second coming of Drayson?
What was it?
Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
You go.
Yeah, you go. Okay, I'm gonna lead him off track though. Is that alright?
So was I.
Okay, sweet. So, anything bad happen on set? Or is there anything that you would have liked to change and just forget Dad's here right now? You can say freely whatever you like. Give me some dirt, please.
Really?
Yeah, give me some dirt.
Because we control the media, so.
Yeah, okay. There really wasn't all. There was, like, my first day on set was kind of funny because there was this one guy who he was interesting. He was in outer space already, it seemed. Nice enough guy, but just like he just, all his marbles weren't, I don't know, he was interesting. And he kept talking about drugs and stuff, and we were like, all right, so you like this topic. Anyway, he had this scene where he had to do this, like, oh, we're being attacked, and I don't mean to be, you know, whatever, we're talking dirt, but he was just very, he had to fall and die, and he was just very, it was comical. You know, I like the puppets, and it just looked very kind of puppety, and him falling down. We kept doing it over and over again, and Neil was very, very patient and not condescending at all. He was totally cool and supportive, and even when he left, Neil was just like, all right, what's next? You know, everyone else was like, what the fuck was that? But Neil was very professional. Yeah. Well, he talked all about this drug flashback, and it was very like, oh, dude, I had this dream last night, right? And there was like this bunny, and he was carrying a bread knife, and he was coming after me. But then I had these pigtails, and then all of a sudden everything turned into like this hue of like orange and green, and then, so what am I saying? And what's my line? And it was just really strange, and that wasn't necessarily what his dream was, but it was kind of like that. And he'd come back and tell us all about the details of his weird little dream, and the rabbit with the butter knife or whatever it was. Really, really weird. Emmy, yeah, she was awesome. She kind of kept to herself at first, you know, and then and then she started, you know. I guess she was just working on, her character, and she's striking to look at, and a beautiful lady, and quiet, and just interesting and serene, and here, pristine, and I'm all like, hey, space, woohoo, hey. And then she started to join in, you know, but quietly, so it was really kind of cool and subversive little, you know, talking about space farts or whatever, and it was awesome that she just played along. She was really fun and cool, but yet doing, you know, chill and quiet, and Emmy.
Do you have any other titles?
Bitch.
Actress.
High maintenance, diva, pain in the ass, drama queen, scream queen, shall I go on? Sci-fi goddess.
High maintenance diva is what I prefer.
What, is that what you're putting on the title? Okay.
I like it.
Starship was my first spaceship type of film. So it was an unbelievable learning experience. It was an unbelievable artistic experience for me. I always like to be challenged as an actress, and after doing a ton of mobster movies and horror films and comedy and Ms. Vampy, you know, this was like this incredible new opportunity. I was like a little kid, you know, in a candy store, and we were talking about this the other night at an event, and I was saying how both Neil, my director, and EJ, who I worked with, had to sort of teach me not just how to act in this new sort of sci-fi Shakespearean type of language and energy, and understanding this new way of genre, and also learning, because I played Staris, who flies the starship, and to have to learn the technicals around this it was like I felt like a little kid again. Like it was something totally new, totally exciting, totally scary. I was scared to death. I sat, you know, on the spaceship, on the starship, and I was like, like I felt like I was playing like a video game, you know, and I couldn't quite grasp initially the first couple days how to work the technicals, you know, and where your eye line goes when you're on the spaceship and what's going on and what your choices are, and you're looking at planets, and it was crazy for me, but it was exciting, and I had so much fun, and I felt like I really broke into something that I love, and something new and exciting, and I can't wait, and I hope I have the opportunity to do more, whether it's Starship sequels or something else that Neil stars me in. Anyone who knows me well knows that I'm a little tiny person. I'm a little person, and with a big booty, but I requested that, you know, and I'm always, it's so funny too, because I feel like I'm always working with very tall actors. It's just like, it's like almost like a joke, an industry joke. Every male actor I act opposite is like 6 feet to like 6'5". So I'm always used to now wearing super high heels, whether they be boots. Obviously I wasn't wearing like spiked, you know, stilettos on Starship. But I did go to Neil and I said, wait a minute, if I'm seated a lot of the time, can I be wearing boots with big 5-inch, you know, platform heels? And he said, do whatever you want. He said, whatever makes you feel secure and good and happy and like Stars the character. And, you know, it's kind of something that, you know, obviously Brooke in real life is big on the heels and being taller, but all of my characters, I sort of make it work and make sense out of it and find a reason that, you know, they wear them as well. I think one of my heels did. Thank you. I think at one point we were always really careful on set on the Starship, on the spaceship, to watch where we were walking, because there were holes in the whatever was covering the floor of the ship. So a couple of times my big heels on my boots did fall through. And I think the most embarrassing thing was the first, probably, and you'll probably see it in the film and on the cut, where I'd be willing to bet that from the first couple of days, maneuvering the technicals again probably look less authentic than down the road, than like days later and Starship Coming Darkness and stuff like that, because I finally got the groove. But I think initially it was pretty embarrassing. Like, I was really self-conscious of what I was doing, you know, with all of the technical stuff and maneuvering. And so I think that was probably pretty embarrassing. And there's other stuff that I won't discuss on camera.
What was it like working with the crew and the other actors? Was it a good environment to work in?
For the most part, it was an incredible experience as far as the actors. You know, I've been blessed to do a lot of indie film, and some of them are bigger budgets, some are smaller budgets. Sometimes the budgets seem to make a difference as far as the crew and the pacing of how quickly you're shooting, and, you know, even cast members and attitude. And I can honestly say that this was a group of artists, which was so amazing, and I was so grateful to have experienced that, because it had been a while, quite honestly, since I had been in an environment like that, where everybody's very supportive and no egos, no divas for the most part. Like, I've done films way bigger paying and bigger budget, you know, big films with very well-known actors and male actors, in fact, who were like the biggest divas and queens like around. So this, I can honestly say, everybody really wanted to be there. Everybody was there on time. Everybody was prepared. Everybody was ready to rock. And I think that that's a testament, honestly, to Neil Johnson and the crew, because it sort of, and I know from producing in the past, it all trickles down from the top down. And when you go into a project with artistic integrity, the rest seems to follow. 100%. First and foremost, when Neil Johnson first came to me with the script, and, you know, I had seen his past films and knew, and had gone to the premieres and stuff, and knew how well he wrote female roles and how strong and how powerful. And that's something as an actress that attracts me both to a script, a project, and to a role completely. And when I read, it's funny, because when we first had lunch and Neil said to me, you know, read the script, I have a character in mind for you. And he actually said to me, I feel that Stars is the best chosen character for you, but you have options. So read it and see what speaks to you and what resonates with you. And Stars absolutely did. Raja played the lead empress, and First of all, let me just say she is a phenomenal actress and a lovely energy and spirit, and I enjoyed working with her thoroughly. In the scenes that she and I did together, there was so much girl power and so much female energy going on, and it was really incredible. So that was amazing. I loved all of the female roles in both Starship Rising and Starship The Coming Darkness. They are strong. I don't think that Neil wrote one weak. Emmy's character was incredible. I don't think that Neil wrote one weak female role, and that's something that truly attracts me to a piece. And I love that the women are the empresses and are running the show and are becoming, and I don't want to give away too much of the film, but from when we go from Starship Rising to Starship The Coming Darkness, Staris grows, and that's something I love so much about my character is that's one of the reasons I chose her. She has so many different layers and arcs. I think she and Emmy's roles are the most changing and the most evolving and the most there's probably the most arcs and growth in them and sides to them, and I love that. But at no point in time, and what I loved was, as an actress and as Stars the character, I could show vulnerability and emotion and cry and get angry and all of these layers, and yet I hope it doesn't come across that way in my choices I made as an actress. I don't think at any point in time she's ever truly weak. Even, and I don't want to give away too much because I know what goes on in the films, but even when she falls, we'll say, as a character, she picks herself back up and comes right back and is stronger than ever. And I love that. And so, yes, I am all about strength in women, being a woman who has had to fight. I hate to say that or think that, but it's the truth. I've had to fight, not in a negative way, but to be where I am today in this business and in Hollywood and have a continuous career as a woman of a certain age. And I am inspired even in horror. I've never been killed. I've not done nudity, and not that I judge that because I really don't. But I'm just real careful and clear on the choices I make because I want to be empowered. I want to empower other women. I want to empower young women. And so I know I've given a very long answer, but there you have it. Yes, I love it. I love that these films really show the strength in women. It's such a different, it's such a different world that I'm ashamed to say I don't know enough about. I have friends who are Iranian and Persian and have shared stories with me about how oppressed women are over there, and it's a little bit shocking to me. I think, again, with me growing up in a big city in Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, and then moving to Hollywood, I've always been in big liberal cities and I'm so liberated and so liberal and such an independent woman who's been on her own and single and forever. And so it's hard for me to really process what goes on in other countries. So it breaks my heart when I watch documentaries, when I see what goes on with women in India and women in Iran and Turkey. And it's surreal to me. It really is, because I can't for the life of me imagine me ever living in an environment like that, But one thing I will say, to turn it into a positive, that I have really been sort of intrigued by and fascinated with and inspired by as far as overseas, more so in Europe, I would think, which you guys could really, share more about it with me, is how women are revered as they get older. I love, you watch movies like Under the Tuscan Sun and just all these movies in France and Italy and even in London, even in England, I feel that women are not judged fully on their age, on their external beauty, on being a stick figure, I find it so amazing. I read articles and I see pictures about, women dating younger men and the whole cougar thing that started in Europe. And it's just, I think that women are more respected in a lot of ways overseas. So on a positive note, that turns me on.
Casting process for Starship was really cool because we, having met Neil through friends of friends, before his production actually commenced, we came on board, and I was initially trying to introduce him to an artist, a singing artist that I work with, and as you guys would know, as Jolie, and it went really well. When we came on board, we weren't really expecting anything, and we went through the audition process as anybody would, and that went fantastically. So we sort of became a little part of the family, and it was fun. The character of Rortak and his dynamics were really difficult because and I hate to say it, but a lot of it was winging it just to see if there was anything that I was doing that came off badly, which I would expect, as any actor does. They expect their director to kind of call them out on it and say, okay, I'm sorry, that didn't work. That looks terrible. But in my case, it was one of those things where obviously we all imitate certain things that we've seen. We take little bits of things here and there, whether you're a singer or a musician or an actor. There's always people that you look up to that go, wow, that person's really good at what they do. And for me, I was trying not to imitate Data too much from Star Trek or one of these other actors. And in fact, my understanding was that Rortak originally was supposed to be a lot more human, a little more like, maybe a good example would be Ash from the first Alien, or David from Prometheus. Something a little less artificial. But the only thing that kind of bothered me about that was, like, for one, sometimes the line is blurred whether that is an artificial person or it's or if it's a human. And for me, I kind of wanted to explore, how artificial could we make this look without it being campy? So some attempts were made to decide, wow, I wonder if maybe we could do some physical modifications to make it less human-esque. But it's important always to be mindful of where that line is between hokey and interesting. And it really came down to watching a performance on camera and just going, does that work? And we have no idea until we do it. And for me, I'm not sure why, but the cadence of a lot of the dialogue was a little bit borrowed at times, I think, from Teal'c from Stargate SG-1. And it's strange because I always thought of him as a little bit reserved. He's not as expressive as most humans. So I thought, well, that's an interesting way to reserve your reactions, but at the same time, you have to think, if you're an artificial individual, what parts of you are artificial, what parts of you are natural. And it's an interesting line to toe. What can you tell me? In terms of my own interpretation of Rortak, when he begins his journey, we're very keenly aware that he has limitations, but based on dialogue you hear from Drayson and other characters talking about him being untethered, which is really a fascinating term in my opinion, because you always wonder, what does that mean, and what are his limitations? And understanding that he can continue to grow and expand, and that's a little scary because we all think of the Skynet or any of these fantastic stories of sci-fi that have come before that are that explore, what happens when artificial intelligence becomes more than the sum of its parts. What happens when it supersedes what mankind can do? And for me, it was kind of, it's sort of one of those things where you go, well, does that mean that my mannerisms change when I've adapted or become a little more self-aware? And it's hard to imagine being self-aware in tears, like, becoming more self-aware and eventually surpassing the awareness that mankind has. And for Rortak, I think his ownership that you speak of mankind, it's a little bit of a superiority complex, because it's one of those things where an android would eventually come to the assumption that he knows best, and the rest of mankind is left to sort of attempt, well, I guess they really can't attempt to undo what they've done because they've let the cat out of the bag. And now with this android on the loose being able to do all the malevolent things that he might do for their better good, it seems like he I'm sure thinks he has man's best interest at heart, but it's very, very dicey when it comes to letting something that's more powerful than you control circumstances. I think he thinks he does. He thinks he has man's best interest at heart, but I think his motives are very much a combination of his ability to process the variables in the universe and as well as the history of sentient beings that have continued to fight and combat, and really when you hear the sum of his thoughts expressed to Worthy, it's in the words, "No more war, Worthy, no more war," and at that point you kind of realize he's trying to teach them not to be self-destructive. But in so doing, is he any better than they are? Because in a sense, he's destroying what they could become. So it kind of rolling the clock back on mankind and saying, well, we're going to have to put you back in a box until you can learn to behave. The day I walked on set for Starship, having not really known what my attachment would be, I think at the time, actually, I was cast as Drayson, if I remember correctly. And that was before some modifications to the casting had been made, and fantastic modifications in my opinion. But you know, things were still getting dialed in, and even the set was being dialed in. You walk into this interior of the of Starship One, and you look around and you just go, "This is." I hadn't been on a set like that since I was at Foundation Imaging about 20 years prior, looking at this. I don't even know what it was meant to be, but a fantastic interior of a starship that they had there, next to a huge green screen. And you walk on a set like that, and you just go, "I used to create this kind of stuff at home, you know, in a much more simplified form, just pretending when you're kids." So it's like anybody that walks on the set. If you're recreating an episode of Star Trek and you have a facsimile, a recreation of the Enterprise bridge, and you walk on board the first thing you want to do is either sit in the captain's chair or sit at the helm. You automatically want to just be in that world. And the more immersive the set is, the more realistic it is, the easier it is to just let the rest of the world kind of disappear and be in that universe. I mean, and be far away, you know, in space, no one can hear you scream. You know, immediately you start to think, okay, what else could be happening on this ship, and where do these corridors lead? And really, there's not a whole lot of corridors built, but hey, all the corridors look the same, so who cares? And I walked into engineering, and it was one of those things where I thought, you know, this is going to be interesting because we're going to see this set a bit destroyed during, you know. So I took a lot of pictures. I was just like a kid in a candy store. Emmy and I were working together for a couple of years before this project, and it's really easy, I think, for a sci-fi fan to know a kindred sci-fi fan when they meet them, especially when so many references to other shows and movies and comic books and things come up, and then you get to things like Comic-Con, and it's just, you know, you realize, okay, we're on the same page here. And I had a feeling that she would absolutely love to be a part of something like this. And coming from some theatrical background that she has, and I mean, I myself have done a lot of Shakespeare and gone to festivals and things, acting on stage. And I knew, you know, this is going to be something where she'll get to stretch herself a little bit and do something really fun. And even if I didn't know until I got the script whether it would even be a challenge for us in terms of stretching our acting abilities, because we didn't even know what we were cast at first. We were like, well, we're going to get the script today, but I wonder what we're actually playing. And once you get to that point where you read your role and you get through your dialogue and you look at the direction and you just go, oh, this is going to be fun, you know. That's when you realize you're like, okay, and that's not even accounting for the improv, the stuff that'll come up, you know, on the day that it's like, you know, Neil will say, well, why don't you try this? You know, we're just going, okay, we can give that a stab. And sure enough, some of the best material comes out of improv. Oh, the costuming I did myself. The costuming I put together based on just trying to keep it simple. I had seen what some of the other costuming looked like, and I thought, well, let's keep it simple, but let's make it just different enough where you realize he's not just one of the crew. He's definitely, there's something else about this guy that's a little different. And they meet him initially, as you know, on the space station. And when they step off their ship onto the gantry and he greets them, very cold, very just lifeless in a way until Drayson gives him an identification code. And then suddenly he springs to life with, you know, this more of a greeting type of a personality. But the costume, I figured when they approach him, just needs to look very not too simplified, but industrial, not too warrior-like, because, well, he's not really a warrior. But, you know, some battle armor here and there, and I thought, you know, I wanted to really do something cool with the eyes, and it just so happened that I had earlier gotten some really cool contact lenses for other projects, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna pull these out and just see if this flies. And I was kind of expecting for the contact lenses to be, you know, no, let's get rid of that. That's a little too Lieutenant Commander Data or something. But I looked at them and I thought, you know, they're really not. And especially with all the other factors that make a character, maybe they wouldn't be too over the top. And it was nice because it gave me a certain kind of piercing vibe. And I mean, every actor looks in the mirror and sizes up their own performance and talks to themselves in their own dialogue and looks at them. And I thought, you know, this looks really cool. And with the added pigment, it was subtle, but it gave me a little bit of a sheen that made you think, is he made of silicone? Is that flesh? What the heck? So it's really fun though to be able to put on a face that isn't quite your own and just say, you know, I'm going to be somebody else today, and do it in a way that at least intrigues people. Because if people don't want to watch your performance, it's kind of ruins the whole point of it. So, Emmy, talented? No. No, she absolutely is, and the one thing, I actually helped her with her audition dialogue, and not that she really needed it, but I think it's always helpful for an actor, anybody, goes for anybody, to have sort of an outside view of what it is that you're doing, because a lot of the times, unless we film ourselves and we watch it back, it's hard to have an opinion on what you're doing. Am I doing this right? And she had all kinds of fantastic input on the way that she could do the role, and sometimes she'd ask me, what do you think? Should I do it like this or do it like that? And I thought, you know what? Do it however you feel it's going to be natural, and let the director rein you in or give you a different direction. Just be ready to be malleable, because you never know what they're going to throw at you. And of course, it did change in the middle of the audition. I don't know if she recalls this, but right in the middle of the audition, we got this look from Neil, like this really, it was a little bit disconcerting, because when he looked at us, he just would one of these where it was like, I don't know. But instead of that, what was actually going on in his head was, I want to see it a different way. And we did audition again, and he had us, change it up a little bit. And just, every director needs to see if an actor can be directed and changed, give a new performance, something a little different than the last one. And Emmy, I think for me, one of the things that I gauge in an actor is, on a global, more of, are they versatile? Can they play a variety of characters? But what really comes down to is, even if an actor kind of gets pigeonholed in one particular kind of role, if you ask them to do it a different way, can they really do it? And every time that I asked her to do it differently, even just privately among ourselves, she was able to absolutely adapt. And each time, it was interesting. It might not have been what the director's looking for, but it's one of those things where you go, wow, this person's got chops. I want to put them in front of an audition camera and just see what happens. And I think Neil's like anyone else that's worked with a lot of actors. He can look at somebody and say, there's potential here. I can work with this, and anybody that had seen, and I had the pleasure of seeing a lot of Emmy's home movies through her mom, and some of them were plays, and instantly I thought, okay, I've worked with a lot of actors like this, and she's definitely got that, that element that you look for in an actor. With Emmy, I guess I co-produce a lot of projects with her, but my official title is road manager. So when she travels, I usually travel with her and help her take care of particulars and keep things on schedule and whatnot, and deal with all the stuff that she doesn't need to be handling in logistics and such. So I do a lot of that, and it's really cool to be able to meet additional people all over the world that are involved in entertainment. But I think when we're here and we're based in Los Angeles, it's a little better, because we have a network of people that really say, we're going to do some projects, and we're just going, okay, what's next? Neil had a few props and costume bits laying about that he thought should be incorporated in Emmy's suit. But a really cool thing happened when we were doing wardrobe the day that everybody was getting suited up. He took a chance. And he said, if you guys want to, dress it up, I trust you. And we're like, cool. So we took a few pieces that he provided and embellished on it and added to it and painted some things and cut some things apart and reattached them. And it ended up being a really fun little collaboration. And a friend of ours, Matt Gauthier, who lives up in Oregon, sent down fantastic handcrafted leather belts for both of us to wear, and holsters, and he had a drop holster for her. And I'm thinking, this is great. She's like Han Solo, the female version of, and it was really cool to be able to add a little bit of those pieces, because we sort of like, it's kind of like you're getting to know your own character by putting some of these things on and getting a little more dialed in to how you're going to act. And for her, I think it is like with any actor, you put on a particular costume and you just go, okay, I feel like I can kick some ass now. There's a whole lot of things that happened on set that are memorable and we could talk about, but I think what we did not expect was, and it's such a cliche that a lot of people say about a lot of films, and that is, you end up becoming a family because you work together so closely. I was really surprised that the elements of drama that came into the set that were a little bit uncomfortable usually weren't from the actors or the crew. It was people that were in the area that would wander into set. We had a couple really bizarre people, and really only one cast member who is not in the film, who was replaced because nobody could handle him. And I actually wasn't there for a lot of his outbursts and diva moments and strange, quirky behavior. But from what I understand, that was definitely the biggest headache for Neil in the shooting of the film. But internally, he was very quick to remove anybody that was a problem, because he wants his actors to be comfortable, and he wants everybody to be able to be free to create and enjoy the creation process, as opposed to, oh, I got to work with that guy again. Oh, this is not going to be fun. So it was a very pleasurable experience, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Working with Darren was really cool. I didn't really know at all what to expect when we began the project, because he sort of was continuing to craft his character on his own, and he was a little bit closed off at the beginning, and rightfully so. I mean, you're still preparing, and you're kind of in your own head a lot. But as things progressed, we realized these are the kind of people we would hang with and go meet up with a Comic-Con or whatever. We're like, we're all nerds here, so why it really just ended up becoming a huge pleasurable experience to work with him. I was really, as an actor, one of the things I'd like to add is with Darren, it's really, really hard to carry a scene if you have nothing to react to, in dialogue especially. And with Darren, every time he would really get into his character, and he would really start to push the emotion point home. And remember, I'm reacting from a non-emotional standpoint because I'm not an emotional character. So sometimes I actually consciously had to turn off my natural reaction to because his performances were powerful and they were gripping, and I'm this far from his face, and I'm looking at him and I'm just thinking, I so want to react in the way that actors are, it's drilled into your head, react to this particular situation. And from my standpoint, I had to be in this, alternative, artificial, logical mindset and react the way a computer would, in a sense, which is not at all related to somebody's emotional outburst. But of course, Darren was the antithesis of Rorschach, because he was the passion of the story. He was the man who just wanted justice, and rightfully so, wanted to be the one to serve the justice himself. Rorschach, on the other hand, similar goals, but completely different methodology. And EJ, well, we don't really need to talk about him. No, I'm kidding. I hope people really loved the dynamics between Emmy and EJ for the film, because everything about them was it was very strange to meet him and then see that dynamic just appear on stage, where it sort of became this, wow, what is it with these two guys? What is up? And the whole time we were asking questions, we were in our own minds going, this could turn into a really interesting sibling rivalry type of a situation. But it's too cool. I mean, if we had it to do again, I think I'd like to see EJ be able to expand his character and do something where we get to see another side of him, because a lot of him was, he was very focused on, what was happening with the Starship, as opposed to seeing a lot of emotional moments for his character. And the emotional moments we did see were really gripping and powerful and so subtle. I mean, you just see it in his eyes, and you just go, oh man, there's something to connect to. It's not just another character on the set. He also, when we meet up with the master, the creature at the end, I think that's the second film though. It was really interesting to be able to play off completely different reactions to that creature, where one person is looking at it thinking, is this going to eat me? And the other person, Rorschach, feeling like, fascinating. I want to know more. He was more about the experience, whereas EJ was not so comfortable with the situation. Yeah.
I started doing a podcast with the person that I was in a relationship with, and as bad as that whole situation was, I can at least take a lot of good from it as well, thankfully. but I met so many great people, and one of them being Neil, and who I think is pretty talented in what he does, and he was kind enough to give me a role and actually crew work on Alien Armageddon, and so I did some hair and makeup work on that, and also did a role in where we bring that controversy about as I'm held captive by the aliens and connected to this contraption that basically puts me in eternal labor. But not for what one wants to be in labor for. But I had a really nice experience on that because it was kind of drawing me back to the days of Clerks in some way, where everybody pitches in, everybody helps out in whatever way that you can, and there's no egos, there's no airs about who is, who's top notch on this or anything like that. I really enjoyed that part, actually. I don't know, and it really didn't hit me until after the whole thing was done, and it's like you guys taking photos. So I'm laying there with this sheet full of blood, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, wow, that's going to be another controversial piece, because it's just, I know that people have told me it's like they had a hard time watching it. It's quite an intense scene. And I know that Catherine, poor thing, I think she still has nightmares about it. It just, while she was there, I mean, I couldn't see a thing. I had lenses over my eyes, and I all I saw was shadows, if there was even some light behind somewhere. Otherwise, I couldn't see a darn thing. But I could hear it in her voice. She was just so disturbed by what she was seeing. So if anything, it lended to her character and what was going on and what was happening in the scene.
Were there any weird questions in the media about that film, or any weird fan reactions or anything like that?
Not that I can recall, actually. It's like just some fans saying how it's like, wow, you were great in that. It's like that was a really disturbing scene. And they were able to, I guess, take the fact away that this was Veronica and this is someone else. And someone had mentioned that to me, and I was like, that meant a lot, actually.
So you're saying because of that Clerks thing, you were typecast a lot, and people were only seeing you in that way.
Yeah. Well, by that way, I don't know if you mean to have controversy attached to it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, definitely. I'm typecast as the Clerks girl, and I know that kind of branching out into other areas and other, say, like a movie of the week and things like that, it's been a little bit difficult for casting directors to kind of see me as anything other than the Clerks girl. And the controversy behind that, my manager can vouch for that. So it's been a little bit difficult to kind of break that barrier, and that's why I'm trying to cast myself in certain other avenues so that I can show people that I'm not just Clerks, I'm not just Veronica, and I'm not just the controversial. That's like, because that's not who I am as a person. And the thing is, it's like after Clerks was shown, and the people that I worked with and people who knew me personally, and just even the cursing alone, never mind the other stuff, but just on the cursing alone, people were like, Marilyn, I've never heard you curse.
Good point. I've never heard you curse.
So, but I definitely do a lot more now than I did back then. But it just goes to show that the person that they were seeing up on the screen was not the person that they knew.
And that's always been the problem, hasn't it?
I think to a lot of degree, people, and I don't know if that's just, with me. I think that's actually true of a lot of actors as well. They get famous for a role and they get typecast as it, and they have to break the barrier.
Well, let's just hit up on that before we talk about Starship. Who is the real Marilyn Gigliotti? Who are you?
I am someone who is very loyal to my friends, caring about everything, and I don't like lying, even if it's kind of twisting certain things. It's like when people want me to say, it's like, oh, why don't you just say this? It's like, even if it's not, I'm like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. That's not who I am. So I'm pretty moral to some degree, and if anybody tries to hurt any of my friends, I may be shy, not as shy as I used to be, but as shy as I am, you try to hurt anybody that I love, watch out. The Puerto Rican Italian in me will come out. Neil talked about another movie that he was going to be doing and shooting 2 at the same time. And as much as he asked me, it's like, what I wanted. It's because he actually did get back to me and asking me, it's like, what kind of role did I want? And so I would actually say, it's like, I just wanted something that was strong, that could show me in a very different way that most people saw me. And even though Veronica is a strong woman, there's still something a little bit different as to that character and the character that I actually play in Starship Rising, which is Zarzis. And she's not only a woman who's very strong, but she's in control of a lot of people, in control of a business, in control of a lot of things. It's like she's a leader. And I don't think I've ever actually played anything like that before. And so there definitely is a difference in playing a leader and playing a strong woman. So I really enjoyed playing that role and just playing something that's just very authoritative and someone who basically has to lead a world.
And also inspire a main character of the film.
Right. Because she's also, not to mention she's a leader, but she's also a mother. Trying to set an example for her and for what she might have for herself in the future.
And pretty much you're in charge of an uprising, a secret robot uprising, I guess.
Yeah, I thought that was actually quite neat, because there's kind of an uprising of worlds, and I take part in this in the sense of creating this new form. I guess is the best way to put it, of ways of helping humanity to fight against evil.
I mean, in essence, you're an arms dealer. Robot.
I don't think I would see it that way.
But your character supplied military robots to a religious uprising.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell me about that?
Like I said, it's like I don't know if I would see it like that as an arms dealer, but she saw that something was needed. And it's like, and I guess to some degree, she was also a scientist to some degree. I mean, making these robots. But there was an oppression, and as a woman and a mother, to see that this was needed because of the oppression of women that we still have today. So in order to fight that oppression so that we are not taken down. I mean, honestly, it's like, if the world did not have women, where would humanity go? It's actually kind of funny how belittled women are, especially in some countries. But they have to do everything for the man, raise the child that they can only have. And to see the way that women are seen in that way, that they're held below a dog sometimes, even in some countries. But yet, they depend on the woman.
Can you tell me about working with her?
You know, it's funny. I actually had a conversation with her one day while we were on set. I can't remember if it was the day that I was playing her mom, or if it was the day that I was doing set photography or not. But we started having a conversation, and I asked her, it's like, you know, so how long have you been acting? She's like, well, this is actually my first acting job. And I was like, really? I wouldn't have known. So, I mean, it was actually quite nice working with her, because she was really driven. She was really into doing the best possible performance that she could do for herself. So I gave her a lot of credit for that. So I had a nice time actually working with her, actually with everybody, you know. You know, the nice thing about actually working on your films is there never seems to be any egos. And I don't know if maybe that's a testament as to who you are. It's like, you know, trying to keep that away. But it just there's always a nice environment, a nice vibe when working on your films and things like that. So I just enjoyed it, and I hope to work with them again, you know, because there is the whole possibility of a number 3. So that'd actually be nice.
Weren't you dead?
Well, there's always the insinuation of my death in the second one. But my death isn't really seen, so there's no way to know whether we actually die or not. And as smart as she was as a person, I would think that she had plans that if anything were to go wrong, that she'd know how to take care of certain things.
So, let's talk about Darren.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was
He's tall.
You did a couple of nice scenes with him.
Yeah. God, you know, on a whole, I just really enjoyed the character. Really enjoyed embodying like who she was and what she believed in and all that kind of stuff. And so I just really enjoyed the scenes that I had with the people that I had, and Darren being one of them, definitely, because it was seeing something in the character, of his character, that maybe he wasn't as bad as he was portrayed to be, and so saw that and was able to kind of talk to him in a certain way. But it's kind of funny though. It's like, you know, the scenes that we actually had together, and it's like I'm looking up at him and it's like I have to give him this whole pat on the shoulder, and it's like, yeah. But you know, makes for fun.
I mean, I think it's in my blood, if that's even possible. I wonder if it is. I wonder if there's a sci-fi gene that we don't know about that makes us predisposed to liking sci-fi. It could happen, right?
Yeah, there is one.
Is there really? Don't tell me there's one if there isn't really one, because I'm going to go Google it and you're going to be in trouble. Well, shit. Two sci-fi films, sorry.
Yes, how'd you score them?
My brain likes to go off into places that nobody else has ever been before. Yes. Wow.
Like, where did it begin?
Where did it begin? I'm trying to think of exactly where it began. I mean, for the most part, I think we were looking to collaborate with a certain sci-fi production, and my road manager, who has a long history in sci-fi, was reaching out to various producers and people who've worked in the industry and looking at various productions. And somehow we met Neil. I'm just going to skip a whole lot of the facts because I think it would take me a really, really long time to process everything. I don't want to torture you too much. So we met Neil, and, initially, I kind of thought, okay, he's got these films, and he would be great to work with as a sci-fi director on a music video, which would be really awesome, but he wanted me to audition for his films, and he wanted my road manager to audition too, which actually made sense to me because my road manager has done acting stuff. I've done theater. I know it's still acting stuff, but different. Community theater. And sing a lot more. I haven't gotten to sing in Starship yet, but mark my words, it could happen.
So what's your character based upon? What's she like?
Jolie is a very independent, I'm trying to think of she opinionated, definitely opinionated. She drops the F-bomb a few times. She's passionate, definitely passionate. And she, she's faced with a lot of difficult situations she's forced off her planet into an intergalactic war. And I mean, that's going to take a toll on pretty much anybody, unless you're Rorschach, who has no emotion whatsoever. There's oh my God. Oh, I'm getting flashbacks of filming now and remembering all of the different crazy stuff that happened. Of course, the one biggest thing that pops up that I don't think anybody will know about unless they see the behind the scenes is Christian and all of his little quirks. Spaceballs! Everything was space this or space that. And you'd never see it in his character because although his character, it sometimes is very funny, his delivery is very straightforward. And he's very, very good. Actually, everybody was really, really good, which definitely helped me expand my acting abilities because, everybody was so endearing and so willing to help me and give me advice. And even just, being able to ask Darren, for instance, what's your motivation here? How do you personally prepare? And he really just gave me the true professional spiel. And I was like, you're amazing. Thank you. And I learned so much from it. It's such a great experience.
Did anything embarrassing happen?
See, I don't really get embarrassed that easily, so I'll pick a couple things that could have been embarrassing if I wasn't so shameless. For one, when we started to do the kissing scene between me and Darren, the camera could see me, but the camera could not see Darren. So right as I'm about to go into the kiss, he goes, and I'm looking at him what are you doing? This is not what we're supposed to be doing. And he just had this crazed look on his face, and I'm like, I'm gonna strangle you when we're done. Obviously, I didn't strangle him. I think he's still alive right now after the mosquito got him the last time we filmed. That's another story entirely. Oh, that was kind of embarrassing. Oh, wait, I do have a story. Okay, we were filming on would it be considered a mountaintop? Oh, on a mountaintop. It was pretty high. It was a long hike. We were filming on a mountaintop during a beautiful sunset. And me and Darren are on screen and we're connecting. And, I'm looking at him. I'm looking him in the eye. And, we're really intensely focused on each other. And the camera's on. And I see this little mosquito just fly out in front of him. And it lands right here, right above his eyebrow. And I keep trying to look him in the eye. Just trying to focus on what he's saying. And the mosquito is still there. So I couldn't even control myself. I didn't even know my arm was moving. I just smacked it off his face. I think they have the footage somewhere. But I mean, I didn't smack him in the face. The problem was that he didn't know it was coming, and nobody else knew that was coming. But I basically separated the mosquito from its little beak thing, which is really disgusting. But he only turned a little red, so it didn't fully bite him. So I felt like a hero that day. But I was a little embarrassed because I didn't mean to smack him. But yeah, that was fun. I hope I get to see that. You know, he didn't smell. He refrained from anything garlicky or oniony before the kissing scenes, which I really appreciated, which I thought of. I wish I had thought of that because it would have been a lot kinder. No, it was fine. I mean, like, we'd really get into the scenes, and, you know, he's a really, really easy person to work with. You know, you feel really comfortable around him, and, you know, he makes sure he's not doing anything to jar you unless it's right before the first kissing scene. Other than that, it was totally golden.
So you said he helped you out a little bit, like with personal acting things. Did he give you any good advice or anything else that he did that was really good?
Yeah, there was this one scene that, you know, it was a very, very emotional scene, and, you know, this was a new experience for me to be able to really drastically turn that kind of thing on. So I was learning as I went along. But there was this one particular scene where, you know, I was looking at Darren before we started shooting, and he just, you know, he started jumping a little bit and getting his blood flowing, and you know, just, he started breathing like this because it was one of those intense scenes that he was building up that intense energy for. And I was looking at him like, that's a really good idea. And I'm like, so what are you doing? Like, are you making yourself feel a certain way, you know, through your physical movement? Like, what's your process here? And, you know, I can't remember his exact words, but after that, I felt like that really changed how I was approaching things. And it started to get a lot easier for me, and things started to happen a lot more naturally, in terms of delivering the lines and being more comfortable and not having to think about it so much. Because he was really able to just channel it from where he was coming from, and he'd get himself to that point so that since he already knew the lines, they were just there. And I knew my lines too, but I think way too much. I need to shut my brain off sometimes. You know, words of Homer Simpson, shut up brain or I'll stab you with a Q-tip. It's the best line ever. Because it is. It's like, that's what people need sometimes. You need to shut off your brain and listen and pay attention to the things that are going on around you so that you can really receive and give without having all of this internal cluster fracks going on in your brain. Yeah.
So, you always had blood on you. Why is this?
Did I always have blood on me?
A lot of pictures of big blood.
Oh, yeah.
You just got blood.
Man, and it's like I got so used to it that it was like it wasn't even there. Although when I'd go into, like, you know, Denny's after we were shooting and I'd have this big gaping hole in my neck, they'd notice. And I still forgotten. Yeah, I'd say there was a little bit of violence. A little bit of violence in the film.
There's somebody covered in blood, though. You were the first to jump in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that would be why. That's a fantastic reason. Ugh. How do I even explain that without sounding like a complete creeper? Whenever anybody died on set, Neil would say, does anybody want to take a picture with the corpse before, you know, we end the scene? And I don't understand why nobody else, you know, ran up with as much excitement as I did, but I was always the first one there to take a picture. It's not like it's a real dead person or alien or dead robot or whatever the hell was dead. It's just, it was their final scene, and I think that should be forever remembered with me in it.
You was like your thumbs up.
Always the thumbs up. Yeah, it was successful, obviously, because in the script they're supposed to die, and here they are dead. So good job, Neil.
So, a film like Starship, how do you think that touches upon, like, a female's role in society?
Comparative to society today.
Yeah, it's quite like
You feel it's
Starships.
empowering.
Yeah, it's very women empowered. Like, if that makes sense, women
Strong.
empowering.
Yeah.
Empowering women.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me with Starship, it's interesting because without thinking about it, I wouldn't have immediately noticed that dynamic of even separating the roles of men and women, because it puts everybody on such equal ground. You know, everybody gets a gun if they take a gun. Everybody can fly a starship if they know how to fly a starship. And as far as I know, in Starship, there were no rules against men or women unless you were on that one planet and you were fucked. But you have to see the movie for that. But that's because they did bad things, so it's like women only. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, comparing that to today, I think we're obviously on much more solid ground being women today than, say, in the 50s, because, I mean, I don't even go near the kitchen, and nobody would want me to, which is the difference. Nobody wants their house burned down. But yeah, I mean, there's so many more opportunities now than there were then, and, you know, it gets to a point where, I mean, I'm sure I need to buff up more on my history, knowing, you know, what the progression has been in terms of women's rights. And well, I know it's just we've come so far in not just, you know, putting men and women on more equal ground, but, you know, everybody else who has been shoved into a label, you know, in terms of trying to make sure we all realize that everyone here is a human. Hopefully.
So, besides burning down a kitchen, do you find yourself to be like a pretty strong woman?
Well, I mean, I would say it takes a strong woman to burn down a kitchen, because, you know, you gotta be crafty, and, you know, burning the macaroni is not quite enough to set the stove on fire. You have to really try. Can't believe I just said that. I mean, I would say I'm a strong woman. I beat my road manager in arm wrestling once. Anyways.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Yes. I was gonna say, I don't know if she wants to reflect on something about this, but like Sci Fi has always been really good at changing perceptions of women with characters like Ellen Ripley, Starbuck from the redo of BSG, Sarah Connor. All of them, even if they begin in like really,
or even Princess Leia.
Or Princess Leia.
Yeah.
Any of those women, you know, start in one particular. Sarah Connor, for instance, started from such a point of like being not a fighter, and instantly rose to the challenge because she had to for survival.
Is that what you did?
Can you say that again, and we can change your voice in post to sound like me, and I'll lip sync it?
I just didn't know if that was relevant to what you were asking.
Well,
do you have any female role models from Sci-Fi? Have any of them, you know,
had an impact?
God, I mean, definitely, Sarah Connor would be a good sci-fi role model, even like up to the more recent Sarah Connor Chronicles. I mean, because she's such a strong character, and she's such a strong woman who was forced to take the role of strong woman, but she succeeded. You know, she didn't let any of the terrible situations get the best of her. Oh my God. Oh yeah, I gotta go up against a Terminator today. You know, it's a little scarier than having to bake a loaf of bread. Okay, I can't say that because having to bake is pretty scary for me. But I mean, I think the thing for me is that when it comes down to people treating each other differently based on gender or their sexuality preferences or anything, or religion or politics, I kind of get to the point where if I see that happening in front of me, I just kind of think, okay, screw you. Seriously, we are all people here. We may all come from different backgrounds. We may all have different opinions, but we're in this together, whether you like it or not. So a part of me is like, let's work on improving that and not focus on it, which I know is probably not quite the best answer, but naturally it's always been my thing to kind of move on and say, you know, we're going to improve this situation. You know, these people may not like each other or treat each other right, but there's always a way to relate to somebody.
Emmy was a lot of fun to work with. Yeah, again, with everyone on set, it was just a really, really good team, a really, really good set. Neil set a really, really good tone. Neil, our director, set a really, really good tone. And, there was a lot of fun just joking back and forth. She's as big of a nerd, if not bigger than I am, which is saying something. So we had a lot of fun, in jokes and all that kind of stuff, and showing each other, hey, look at this picture I found, or look at this nerd thing I got. To say that she's a little bit of a geek is a big underestimation.
What about Darren? What was it like working with him?
Oh, great. We really got along. It was just one of those things where we hit it off. He's a great actor, very talented. And, I definitely look forward to working with him in other projects.
Was he quite serious to work with?
No, I mean, he was serious in the sense that he was very focused and professional. But, behind the camera, when the camera's off, nah. It was jokes and, ribbing each other and all that fun stuff, so.
Who didn't you get along with?
Oh, Neil, he's such an asshole. Oh my God. We just didn't get along at all. No. He barks orders. Yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing, really. Not at all. He's standing right there.
Say whatever you want.
No, I'm kidding. For the record. No, Neil's great. There wasn't anyone I really didn't get along with. There's definitely folks that I got along with more. And there's definitely folks, when you're in any group, there's folks that you get along with more. There's folks that you respect more on a professional level. But at the end of the day, there wasn't anyone where I was just sitting there seething with anger at them or anything like that. Yeah.
So why were you always breaking things?
Because I'm me and I'm evil. It was a combination of me being a damn bull in a china cupboard. And me just being really into what I was doing and not quite realizing that button doesn't work like that. Or I can't push on that thing that hard. How was it like to fly a Starship? When I was a little kid, I'd come home and it wasn't what kind of movie I was going to watch after school. It wasn't, what kind of movie I wanted to go into the theater. It was always, what kind of Star Trek film I wanted to watch. Which Star Trek film, which Star Wars film. And sci-fi, especially spacefaring sci-fi, being that much a part of me and who I am, yeah, it was a dream come true. So Brooke, very nice lady. We got along, and are still in contact. Actually, we kept in touch. Done a lot of horror, done a lot of other films. Had never done a real sci-fi film, and wasn't very big in watching them. And so she was the pilot and I was the co-pilot. And she didn't quite understand how things were supposed to work. And just me having a sense from everything I watched of, okay, this makes sense and do it this way and all that kind of stuff. I had to talk her through, okay, well, this is, no, that's too exaggerated. No, that's not enough, that kind of thing. And kind of show her what I had figured out from being on set prior on, what buttons could do what and that kind of thing. And it was a lot of fun. For me, Starship really is a film about freedom. And it's about how if you keep a populace captive long enough, eventually they're going to break free. Dictatorships can't last forever. No dictatorship has ever truly lasted. And I don't think one ever can. And in Starship, you see a select few thrust in the middle of extraordinary events and forced to not become who they want to be, but become who they have to be in order to do what's right and make a stand against these incredibly oppressive regimes and that rule based on fear of government intrusion, fear of government retribution, fear of religious retribution, and use religion and use fear of the state and fear of divine retribution to control and manipulate to their own ends. These are governments that aren't concerned with the people as they should be. These are governments that are concerned with their own well-being and their own ends. And so, I mean, to answer the question, should any government be like this? No. And governments like that, we're watching. We're even watching, now, them falling one by one. Oh my God, you're right. Yeah. Well, I was standing off to the side watching it through a screen, and this is the big final showdown between Darren's character and the main villain, and they're fighting and they're duking it out. And there's this staff that the main villain had taken from my character, and the guy playing the main villain swipes it across Darren's face and snaps his tooth. And he just misjudged a little bit. He just misjudged the distance by like a couple of inches and just went bam. And yeah, Darren was having to go see a dentist.
Is he angry?
No, he took it like a champ. I mean, this goes what I was saying. Like, we've gone along. He really is a consummate professional. He didn't flip out. He didn't make a scene. Neil offered to take care of it, and he literally just got right back up and did the next take of the same scene. Yeah. So yeah.
Is there blood?
No. It was a chipped tooth, so it wasn't that bad, thankfully. But yeah, it could have been. It could have been. Oh boy, that was fun.
Anyone else hurt themselves or anything?
There's a few.
Surely Emmy did something embarrassing on set.
Well, there's a few times that Neil thought I'd hurt myself. But
You were doing good. You were good with the pole and stuff, the fight sequences.
Oh yeah. Stuff. Well, like somebody was supposed to hit me and knock me down, and I literally jumped and let myself knock down, and Neil wasn't expecting. He was expecting to just kind of like gently step out of screen and they do it in post, and I just went for it, and I hear Neil, "Oh my God, are you okay?" That was fun.
What was it like working on Starship compared to other movie sets, like working with Neil, for example?
It was really fast. It was really fast, and we were doing two movies at the same time. So one day, literally one scene would be doing the beginning of Starship 1, and then 10 minutes later you might be doing the end of Starship 2, and then after that you'll be in the middle of the first one, and it was great. But you had, well, I don't know whether you had to be, but I forced myself to be totally on it in my head, knowing, because I was the lead in it, I put a lot of pressure on myself that I had to know exactly what I was doing, my lines, be totally, looking at scripts, go in there, be leading it, so it was great, but it was really draining. Like by the end, it was long days, and but it was fantastic people, and it was good because Neil really started to get me, and he knows that my first few takes are usually my best, so he likes to do my scenes first, have the camera on me first, because like some people like to warm into it. It's different with me. I like just getting into my head there and then and responding and reacting,
there. So it's so, which is really difficult actually, different should I say, because as a theatre actor, it's the other way around. But I like doing it really quick. But I loved it. I think Starship, the set was really professional, but you had a laugh. You really did have a laugh, and everybody was great. You know, it picked some really good core actors to work with who gave you a lot, and everybody went with it. You know, because I love sci-fi. I love fantasy. A lot of people, when it comes to things like that and green screen, they find it really difficult to, if they don't have an anchor. Whereas in green screen, you don't really have an anchor. The only anchor is your imagination and the people around you. And we had a good team of people that went with that. And we all really, I know it sounds really wanky, but we really trusted each other and went with each other. And it really worked, you know. It was a good company to work with. Really good company.
So you're looking forward to Starship 3 and 4 if it were to happen?
Yeah. I had a really good time on it, yeah. And we've done some pickups and stuff like that. And it's you know, like months after you've filmed the original stuff and you're doing pickups and everything's just seems like straight away that no time's elapsed at all, and it's just carrying on. And so it's a great experience, you know. If you like something, why wouldn't you want to go back to it? Actually, it's a bit scary because you want it to live up to what you did before. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword, really. Yeah.
So as I've been told, you hadn't really done a kissing scene before on camera.
Yes.
And what was it like when you were kissing Brooke? Because your neck went a little bit
underneath the makeup.
On your neck.
You can see it. You can see it. Well, it was funny because we were doing it, and of course, the first day of the shoot, the first day, and he puts me in the bed with Brooke. And it was funny because she's like chatting and I was like, whatever. So she's chatting to Neil with her back to me. And then I just go, strip off. And she turns around and she's like, oh, right, so it's going to be like that. And so we got on really well. And then we were doing all this stuff. And then Neil just said on this one take, okay, just go for it. Do whatever you want to do. And so I thought, well, I'll see what she's going to be like. She seems like, you know, she's up for it. We'll see. So I went for it, and then she went for it, and then the cameras were rolling, and he just kept it rolling, and he said pick it up and do it again. So we just carried on from where we were, and it was kind of crazy, yeah. And we were doing lots of stuff, and Neil was laughing. I could see him out of the corner of my eye, just going, "Okay, yeah."
Especially the pink bra, the massive.
Yeah, the pink bra, the boobs in my face and stuff. Yeah, and I realised that she was game and she was having a laugh and she was up for it. So I did some things like licking her neck and breasts, which a lot of actresses probably wouldn't want you to do, and but we kind of knew each other, and we were working together, so it was fine. But she was giving just as much as she was getting there, so you know, she was going for it. So it was great. It was fun, and yes. It's so funny, Neil did mention the fact that my neck went bright red underneath all the makeup and, yeah, started sweating.
Why was that? Why were you nervous?
No, I don't know. I think you're just getting into it, really.
Is that what happens when you get into it?
Well, yeah, your temperature does rise a little bit.
So what about, like, kissing Emmy?
Yeah, that was funny. We were messing around for the first kiss, and there was and we were doing all this stuff, and like I'd just, because we weren't taking, we were just like setting up, and I'd be doing stuff like, and I'd grab her and I'd be crossing my eyes and sticking my tongue in her mouth and stuff like that, and she's like having a real laugh. And I remember one of the pictures where I'm doing something with her and somebody snapped a picture of us like kissing, and it went on the internet and people were like, oh my god, they're not really kissing, you can tell they're not doing all this. And I'm like, I've got my eyes crossed like that and looking at her and making her laugh, and I'm like, yeah, we're really not. But that was fun. It was another one. Emmy's a cool girl. I really like Emmy, and she it was just really easy, apart from the lip gloss.
the lip gloss, she's applying all this lip gloss just before we do it, and it's like smeared all over my face. And after every take, I'm just like, and she's laughing and putting more on because she thinks it's funny. So yeah, so no lip gloss.
I'm really trying not to laugh. So I don't need to.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
And so you got your tooth cracked.
Yeah, that was a funny one because we were doing. I was more worried about, because he's got all this big, huge armor, and we're doing all this fighting, and you're getting into it. And I think it was the very last take of the last take, and we just did it one more time. And I think he pushed too hard, and I went down. His knee connected with my jaw, and I was spitting out teeth. Yeah, so cracked loads of little things there. But the thing was, we needed to get it done, and we had to be on time. We had to get everything going. So I was just like, Neil came up and he's like, "What is it?" And I'm going, and I'm spitting bits out. And he's like, and Neil's like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." I'm just like kind of like shocked because when you feel it, it feels like a huge gap is missing from your teeth. And I went, "Do you know what? We'll deal with this later. Let's just get it in the can, get it all done. And we could sort all that out because you're in a rush. Let's move. Let's keep moving." And Neil was like, "Okay, cool, yeah." So Neil really appreciated that. But
hence that comes down to professionalism, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just like, no, I don't know if it's professional. If it's just like no dramas, just get on with it. What was it going to change within the next hour? With my teeth had cracked, so what? Okay. Move on. Let's get it done. I can sort that out when it's done.
Anything else embarrassing happen on set?
Loads of things. I can't remember. It all went. There was loads. I think I was terrified in one of the scenes that we did with the. They had these guns that shot these like. It was when we were ramming another spaceship, and there was this thing just near my head that was firing something there, and it was like, "Oh, it's going to be a light explosion, dust," and they were like, and it exploded, and you see absolute terror on my face because he just goes past me. I was like, ugh. I think that was hilarious. That was a good one. There was always falling. There was mild hysteria. There was cracking sets and walking into things, and EJ pulling things apart, and Emmy ripping things off the set by accident. Both of them two were just as bad as each other for tearing the set apart. Just a lot of tired people that were having fun on it. I can't even think now. There's loads of them. I'm sure everybody else will delight in telling you all of the other ones.
So everyone else, I heard about this overseer.
Yes.
So you went through 2 or 3 of them or something?
Yeah, we went through a series of overseers.
What was your opinion on the first overseer? Because everyone was a bit iffy about him. It was quite high maintenance, he seemed.
Well, I didn't really get to know him that well. But it was an interesting few hours that I had with him. He got fired on my first day with him, and he'd shot a lot of stuff already prior to it. But I can't really say what he was as a person, but I can say professionalism. If you commit to one job, you don't commit to another one. It's basic thing in England. I can't say about America. I don't know, but if you take one job and maybe the job of your dreams comes up and you have a rider in your contract to get you out of the contract, then fine. If you don't and you've committed to one thing, then you commit to that one. And I was just really shocked that somebody would waste like 3 days of filming on an indie film at that, and then say, "Oh, by the way, I've got another job. I'm not available all these other dates," and which is, I think it's not only it's kind of disrespectful to the director and the cast and everybody, And I don't know what it looked like. The stuff coming from him, he looked creepy. He really did look creepy. So that was good because that's his character. He's a character actor, but I don't know what we were getting from him. But but that was I felt like there was only one thing that kind of let that production down, and that was it. That was the only thing.
So what about Ralph? You guys had quite a good connection there.
I loved Ralph. Ralph's a cool dude. He's a really good guy, and he's a real thespian, Shakespearean actor, and we just hit it off straight away. He's a good guy, and he's done a lot of work in New York, so I was always talking to him and asking him about stuff that he'd done, and we just clicked. You know, I always knew that when I was in a scene with him, that I could rely on him, and you have to be able to know that you can do whatever, and they'll take what you give them and throw it right back at you, and you know, and it was like tennis because we'd ping pong it off each other, and always giving new takes. And he was just a good guy, always on it, always trying his best, always. None of the outside world was. I don't think anybody brought any troubles or anything else on set. Everybody was really on it, and Ralph was a good guy. Really, really good guy.
Did you do a lot of scenes with him?
Yeah, we did loads of scenes. One of my favourite scenes that we actually did was when we get tipped off. We're being transported and we're going to get tipped off and into this. I think it was a pit or something. And we're going to die. And he goes, okay, and Neil's like there and it's shaking. It's like, and the door's opening and you see all the sunlight, and then it starts tipping up, and then you're falling out, and then we were like. And me, Ralph, and Christina just kind of like went with it, and we're like, like we're falling out of this thing, and it was like, and Neil was just doing it just to mess with us, but we all went with it, and he was laughing his head off, and when we are like pretending that we're falling out of this thing, and it was like Batman and Robin from the 60s or something like that, and it was hilarious, but we all still went with it, and then afterwards laughed. You know, it was good. It's good when you can have a cast that just does that. You know, no questions and no yeah, and you can, you know, there's no believing. I can't think of what is it when you. Anyway, yeah. What is it?
All on the same page.
Yeah, we're all on the same page. When you're all on the same page, and you don't worry about what anybody's thinking. Yeah, we all just went with it.
Like a little family.
Yeah, well, it always is. It's always a bubble. I always say that to my friends. It's always when you get on set or on a show, it's always a bubble, and they become your family, like a really close family, in every set. And I think it's great because you join and you with these actors that you wouldn't usually get in other jobs. You know, you connect with people really well, and it's good. And then you often make friendships for life, you know, with them. So that's good.
What about Christian Anderson?
Christian, yes, I was reading the script for Starship and Drayson, and I kept on reading it, and for some reason Christian kept on coming into my head, and I was like, he'd be perfect for this, and I said to Neil, hey, my friend Christian, he's really cool, can I send you his demo and think of him for Drayson? And I think Neil already had somebody in mind for Drayson or something, and he was like, oh, well, sure, but I'll have a look. And then Christian ended up getting the thing, and now he's just so right for it. He was, you know, like when somebody is born for a role, he was right for that, and he was great because he's crazy. In real life, he is mental. I mean, and he's a good mate of mine, so he won't mind me saying that. He'll probably be happy that I said that because it's true. Everybody who knows him, he's mental, and I love him to bits.
That was the guy from the photos that was like always posing like really. Yeah, I think I picked that just.
Yeah, he was always posing and doing stuff with his. He had this. He's got this tool, and I can't remember what it was. It's space tool that he had, and doing stuff, and he would try and crack me up just before a take. He would say stuff to me, and make me laugh, which was good. I always loved working with Christian. It's like when I did a pickup with him recently. We had a fantastic scene that we did, and it's just it's really good because he's a theatre as well. So he was on set. He was really, really nervous about doing this film, and he was saying that. And he'd go through scenes with me. He's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Dude, you're amazing. Don't worry. Just go with it. You know, you're fantastic." And he was so good. You know, straight away he hit the floor running and was just doing some amazing stuff.
So you, Ralph, and Christian were like a little trio.
Well, no, Christian was not with, didn't do a lot of scenes with Ralph, because Christian did a lot of scenes with me and EJ and Emmy, but not with Ralph. Ralph's storyline goes around a different way. Ralph's got his own storyline, and I've got my own storyline. Ralph and I come together at the end of the first movie. Our storylines kind of really come together, and then that's how. But we were already on set, Ralph and I, a lot of the time filming, so we just got on. So he'd be good because he'd be like asking me what I thought of a take when he was doing his takes, and it was not a scene that I was in, and I'm like, I thought it was amazing. You know, do this, do that. It's not my place to direct, but you know, if somebody asks you something, then you'll say to him, and he was really up for, like, some actors would never ask anybody else, "Oh, what do you think of this?" But we had that trust between us that he'd ask, and I'd say, you know, "Why not this? You know, what do you think of that?" I'm like, you know, and because some people just come and do the job for the money and go. It wasn't like that with Ralph. He was there for the work and to better himself, I think, as well, you know, as an actor. Which is, if you've got a cast that are doing that, that's great, you know. Somebody's having a laugh, yeah. And it's always good if the cast wants to better themselves and do a good project, you know, do a good job. It always works great, and in my experience anyway.